Well, that's definitely not my best emergency landing, but you know what, actually, that might be my worst I've had yet. I suppose I should just be grateful that I actually made it out in one piece. Nevertheless, though, I still need to continue my mission searching for that interstellar ship. Although I don't think my vessel is going to be able to take me there anymore. It appears that we've crashed in an unusual looking fungus. Matter of fact, the entire damn place is covered in fungi. There also appears to be a darkened sky with the smell of sulfur in the air. Not the nicest place ever, but it is kinda pretty here, and besides, these darkened skies might just give me the cover I'm looking for until I rebuild my vessel, away from the prying eyes of enemy forces. To be honest though, it doesn't look like much of this is salvageable, but I suppose we could melt it down to use it. We'll see. In my search for the interstellar ship, I could just walk to it on foot, venturing there without any type of aircraft, but as you can see, the entire planet is covered in alien enemies, so I don't think that's the best idea. My brethren at the UNSC might be able to assist me, but I won't be able to get any reinforcements from them as they're a bit too busy warring with the insurgents, the Covenant, and the outcast forces. Yep, I'm all on my own. Well, best I not waste any time. I need to start chopping down some of these larger mushrooms for some wood. Priorities right now are going to be mission second and survival first because, well, if I don't survive, I can't complete my mission, so I'm gonna set up something of a camp. Nothing too fancy, a small simple shelter thrown together by scraps of logs and a little campfire with a gazebo to keep it out of the rain. I'm also going to throw together some chairs and a table for myself because if I don't have a proper place to eat my meals, I'll go absolutely insane very quickly. So well for the first night in this great big fungal infection. I suppose it's night. I can't really see the sun at all, and my little canopy here is leaking water. Things could be better. The following morning, I awoke very hungry, but we can't just eat anything in this biome. For example, this purple fungus here has hallucinogenic properties. So even though it looks delightfully delicious, there is a pretty good chance taking even the slightest of nibbles will cause me to start tripping balls, which could be detrimental to my survival here. So instead, utilizing my battle rifle, I'm going to start hunting some local wildlife like a large monitor lizard. Sorry, my scaly friend, but if I starve to death, I can't finish my mission, so your death is for the greater good. Lizard never tasted so good. Now we have a semi-decent shelter, but we need some defenses. Luckily, there just so happens to be some ruins in the area that are made out of stone blocks like granite. Just what I needed to start building myself some proper walls and embrasures. These are going to be absolutely crucial, not only just for warding off threats, but for giving me the upper hand, allowing me to take cover to fire at any enemies coming towards our camp. Speak of the devil, we should have known that they would end up sending a scout after detecting our little crash landing that we had. Thankfully for us, it appears to only be one little grunt with one little plasma pistol. Make no mistake though, that plasma pistol could cut through solid steel with enough time. Thankfully though, its wielder just so happens to be a weak-minded oaf, meaning we should be able to get the upper hand on him. As he approached, we started firing our rifle at him through the slits in our embrasures, getting a few hits in here and there. Once again though, he was a bit of a fool, so all we had to do was hide in our camp and he started attacking it instead of us, allowing us to sneak up from behind and shoot him in the back, killing him. Well, that wasn't all that hard, now was it? Now that he's dead, we can put out these fires, and we can even pick up that little plasma pistol. I reiterate again that it's not exactly the strongest weapon that the Covenant have in their arsenal, but neither is the little grunt. This will come in handy though if we were to encounter any larger foes like an elite or a brute. We should be able to use this pistol to easily break their shields, thus giving us a good opportunity for a headshot with our rifle, the old noob combo. Anyway though, I didn't want this little bastard's corpse stinking up my camp, so I chucked him next to some rocks to let him rot and let the animals have their way with him. Not like that, though. Now then, with the threat annihilated, it's time for me to focus on other things, like collecting resources such as steel, which is going to be crucial for rebuilding a ship. The only issue is I'm not going to be able to get any UNSC tech, so maybe I should start looking for alternative methods of flight. Little did I know, the UNSC would actually provide me with the information as to where I could find one. One of the captains with the local UNSC fleet had told me of the location of a grav engine. This type of technology could be exactly what I need. And, luckily, it seems that it's not all that far away from my camp. I gathered up some food and would immediately set out on a journey to acquire this technology. But as I approached, there was just one teeny little issue. The grav engine is Forerunner technology, and, as such, is under the protection of a small squad of Forerunner Sentinels, so if I want that engine, I'm gonna have to send these fellas to the scrap heap. Easier said than done, since they're quite versatile, flying several feet from the ground, and all have an advanced laser equipped as their primary weapon. I immediately took cover behind some walls, firing at them with the plasma pistol, since, as I told you earlier, with enough time and effort, it can easily penetrate metal. I suppose that little freak we killed back at the camp was useful for something after all. After a few blasts from the old plasma pistol, I killed all 3 Sentinels. And I had done so without even taking a scratch. My skin really burns. A small price to pay for a great big boost in completing my mission. With this grav engine, we'll be able to build our very own ship again. Immediately after activating it, we already could detect the location of a grav core. Now, I don't really care about the core, but no doubt this location is also going to have panels, which is crucial for the substructure of the vessel that we need to make. We can't just go out willy-nilly on these little adventures, though, so first we're going to go all the way back home to the camp, and we're going to set the engine up in its very own protective shell of granite walls. That way we can keep it out of enemy hands. No doubt the Covenant would love to have this technology. We can't allow them to compromise our mission. After I set the engine up, I would then start fishing and prepping for our adventure by collecting more and more food. It's hard to say how long we'll truly be there once we arrive and start looking for these panels in the core, but something tells me it's at least going to be a couple of days. In the meantime, before we leave, I'm also going to be planting a large field of edible fungus. As you can see, I accidentally planted some rice, but they don't grow here. The idea being, by the time that we get back home, we should have plenty of food to eat. With our field planted, though, let us not dilly-dally. Time to go to the ancient stockpile, which just so happens to only be a few clicks to the southwest of here. We would end up arriving a few days later in this hot desert hell where these bunkers seem to be. Now, in case you're unfamiliar, the way that it works, there's 3 bunkers, one of them containing the grav tech, and the other 2 basically being empty, but containing some useful things on occasion. Either way, we have to hack these bunkers to get inside, which takes quite a while. The first one that we would end up hacking, we started adventuring all throughout, and one of the most important things that we found here was a pallet full of survival meals. Unfortunately, though, there was no gravtech. However, for safety's sake, since this place has food, and it also has some resources like steel, with that being some furniture and stuff that we could deconstruct, I thought that, what if instead of going back up to the surface to create yet another canopy to sleep in for the night, what if we just stayed here in the bunker until we're done exploring? So I basically just utilized some of the steel and what have you that was already in here, made myself a makeshift bedroom, and I was snug as a bug in a rug, safe and sound. Staying below ground like this also had the added benefit of making it so that we weren't so easily detected by enemies as well. Essentially, once we were finished looking all throughout our bunker, not finding anything else that was useful, we could move on to the second, begin hacking it, and once we were locked out for a few hours, because sometimes that happens, we could go back to our bunker, eat, hang out, come back, hack some more. Thankfully, we got quite lucky, and this second bunker ended up containing the gravlight panels and the core in the second room that we walked into. What are the odds of that happening? pretty low, in my experience at least. We started carrying all this back out to the surface, and we were more than ready to head back home. There was just one little problem though. I wasn't able to carry all of these items back, not even all of the panels, which is basically the only reason that I came here. Now I had the idea of just making several trips and settling in this area, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, I couldn't settle the ancient stockpile as my own home. Meaning, if I leave now, everything here is going to be lost forever. Well, that was the complete opposite of what I wanted to happen. Thankfully, in the area, there were 2 donkeys, literally the only wildlife in the area, so it seems that I've lucked out. After about 4 or 5 days of attempting to tame them, eventually I finally got one. Thankfully, with my new pack animal, I would be able to bring all of the panels and the core and even the survival meals, as well as a couple of other things back home. This little fella is a lifesaver. Quite literally, I wouldn't be able to finish my epic mission of getting off this planet with the interstellar ship without him. I think he's earned a name. Hot Dog. No particular reason. I just like it, but thanks to Hot Dog's hard work, we can finally get started on the substructure of our brand new vessel. The vessel that is going to fly us around the world in the skies, over the oceans, and thus into our sweet victory. I must say though, this entire time, I didn't really mind being alone, but at this point, building a ship all by myself, I really wish I had some helping hands, because this process took a lot longer than I would have liked for it to have. On the bright side though, earlier while we were out adventuring, we did finally retrieve the location of the ship to the stars. Now the only thing is, well, getting our ship built and getting over there, of course. As we would have guessed, it is quite far away for the most part, and trying to get there on foot would have ended up in our ultimate demise. So I think we're going in the right direction. As we were working on our flight plan though, something much worse than the Covenant arrived. This is a flood carrier form, basically a space zombie, and even the smallest scratch could completely turn us within seconds. I wasn't going to take the chance of letting this big bastard sneak up on our camp in the dark, so I decided to kill it preemptively, and out from it burst 4 infection forms who tried to chase me down and wrap their tentacles around my throat, but thankfully I would kill them as well. That was a close one. Their very presence on this planet, though, is nightmarish to say the least. As a precaution, I'm no longer going to be sleeping in the canopy, and I would actually set up a bedroom and dining room here inside the ship. This will be much more safe. The design of the ship is based on my best memory of the UNSC Pelicans. It's not exactly the same, but the best I could do on short notice with the limited supplies that I have. Really, it doesn't have to look all that pretty, it just has to get us over to the ship to the stars so we can get the hell out of here. Regardless though, I am actually going to plant some dyes, that way we can dye the ship before leaving. That way, if some of our allies were to see us lying around, they'll know that we're friendly. We've somehow managed to make it this far. I'd really hate to be stopped by friendly fire with a big Mac cannon shooting us in half. We ended up receiving a signal in the ship. Some type of civilian was actually radioing in, saying that she was being attacked by a Forerunner machine persona, and she was looking for assistance. Needing some helping hands, we would quickly accept. She would end up arriving at our camp some odd hours later. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Isn't it kinda irresponsible to bring a civilian along with you on such an important mission? Yes, but 1, we could use some help, and 2, of course it wouldn't be right of us to leave someone in need. Sure, she might end up dead if she comes with us, but she'll almost definitely be dead if she doesn't. Besides, look at that mining skill, ooh la la. From a military perspective and fighting perspective, we really don't need any gold, but having her mine it out, we could end up trading it for some useful items if push comes to shove. So we let her collect some stuff like that, as well as steel and other materials that we knew we would need. Having her retrieve that type of stuff really freed us up to do some other useful stuff, like building a machine gun turret onto the front of our ship, which will help us defend ourselves. Now comes our next issue though. We need to fuel up the ship before we can actually go anywhere and do anything. Where are we going to get the fuel, though? Well, it just so happens that our fungal jungle home here has quite a substantial amount of boom shrooms, which naturally produce chem fuel, the type of fuel that we can use inside the ship. I think you see where I'm going with this. Now that the ship is finally fueled up, the last thing we need to do is to give it an adequate paint job with all that dye that we've been growing. Nothing too fancy, of course. We're just going to be sticking with a typical UNSC Pelican green, and I think that it is starting to resemble one a little bit better now. Before we launch out, though, we have a request from a Forerunner monitor, apparently in exchange for using some type of experimental forced weather on our area here. They would end up giving us a map and some plasteel. Between me and you, I don't care at all about that map, but that plasteel could really help us. Of course, we accepted getting our plasteel shortly thereafter, and we would immediately put it to good use in a machine gun turret that we can use to defend our ship from the back side, where our automatic turret cannot reach. And with that, my friends, I think that we are finally ready. It's time for us to complete this mission. Ah, yes, our destiny awaits. Oh shit, I forgot about Hot Dog. Oh no, he's still tied up. Oh well. Well then, it appears that we've arrived, but not quite in the area that we wanted to. You see, unfortunately, the ship could only go so far on the fuel that it had, and we're still pretty far away from the ship to the stars. So, for the next few days, while the engines cool down and we start refining some of our own chem fuel, we are going to be setting up a defensive perimeter, as well as collecting some resources and making a little temporary camp. First things first, we need a small canopy here with a biofuel refiner, that way it doesn't short out or rust and fall apart in the rain here, and we can immediately start chopping down some trees to turn into fuel for the ship. This process might go a lot smoother than I initially thought. Or perhaps not. It looks like a small group of outcasted aliens is coming to fight us and try to kill us, and you know the gist by this point, I'm sure. The outcasts are essentially an alien militia force. They're not quite as well equipped as Covenant forces, but they're still just as dangerous to humans. The both of us would rush straight into action, Tomako moving the machine gun turret and quickly laying down some cover fire against our enemies, whatever it took to not give them a very clear shot at our heads and bodies with those massive plasma weapons. The last thing that we want to do is become a burnt crisp here on the beach before we even make it to our destination. We had managed to kill the much smaller skirmisher, but the larger one, the brute, he would not be so easily subdued. If we were going to kill him, we would have to take down his shield with a plasma weapon like our pistol first. We began attempting to do this at point-blank range, but we would have to quickly retreat next to the open tails of our ship as he retreated to some nearby rocks. Eventually, though, well, I think that takes care of that. With some pretty minimal injuries, we've managed to take down our foes, and we even get to take their weapons. These should make it much easier to deal with them in the future, as well as enemies from any other faction. Most people and things are pretty sensitive to burning hot plasma, as I'm sure you could guess. Once we finally got the ship refueled, and we repaired some crucial damage that had been done to the ship by our little skirmish with the aliens, we would finally head out one more time. My friends, in this sandy, desolate desert, this spicy, hot little biome, our destiny awaits sitting atop many a dune. The ship to the stars, finally. You see, the technology here is Forerunner in nature, so we need to get it off the planet and into the stars ASAP, back into the UNSC's grasp. Only problem is it's going to take about 15 days or so for the reactor to get started. So, I guess we had better start preparing for a fight. It's a good thing that we had collected plenty of steel in preparation for this moment, as we planned on using it for our walls surrounding both of the ships and the embrasures, allowing us to shoot out at our enemies. However, we would damn near immediately, at least the same day, be attacked by some insurgents who had detected the power signature. We had been busy fighting the alien races of the Covenant and the Outcasts for so long, we had kind of forgot how weak humans really are, and thanks to our plasma weapons that we had stolen from our previous enemies, killing these folks was a piece of cake. After killing them, Tomako would actually strip one of them and put on their flak vest and pants. Now, I know these are tainted, it's gonna cause her to go crazy here and there, but it's better than no armor at all. For the next few days, as we continued getting attacked by insurgents and having to put them down rather easily, we would also end up having to dip into some ancient ruins for materials like stone blocks to finish up our defenses. Once these were completed though, we had something of a kill hallway, I guess you could call it, going straight up the middle. That way insurgents and Covenant alike would walk through spike traps and be blasted by us, as well as our turrets once we ended up building some. We also realized now that the ship's reactor is powering up, we can start siphoning electricity from it as well, and we no longer have any power issues or restrictions for the most part. We were fighting plenty of enemies during this time, but we were also finding ourselves when Muse and Tomako ended up falling in love. I suppose with everything that they've been through, and them being the only two people here, it only makes sense. We had mostly been fighting insurgents, but occasionally we were getting Outcast and Covenant forces. In this case here, we actually got a pretty decent sized group of Outcasts coming to kill us, and immediately after, the Covenant arrived and the two of them started killing one another. I wasn't going to complain about this. In fact, I was quite excited. Once they were done fighting each other though, we would have to take out some of these stragglers, but we didn't mind that either, as that meant that we got their sweet weapons, and we even had one of their grunts who we could tend to, and we could also take prisoner. The grunts tend to have very low resistance and will, since they're so simple-minded, so it shouldn't take long at all for us to recruit him. We would also spot one of the outcast brutes who hadn't died just yet, and we stripped him of his armor. Surprisingly, it fit rather well on Tomako. Well, okay, maybe it looks a little silly, but it is definitely much better at protecting her soft squishy bits than that flak vest and pants that we had, and this isn't tainted either. Things were actually going rather well, and for the most part, we were holding off all the enemies that were coming to try to take the power of the ship for themselves and the ship itself rather well. About a day or two later, and Sludwig the Grunt finally joined us. I told you they were weak of mind, but he has heart, and that's the most important part because he'll be able to help us with our defense of the ship. We promised him the flesh of his foes, and we also built him a pretty dope-ass bedroom, so he was content with the whole situation. About halfway through or so of the ship's reactor powering up, though, we ended up getting our first raid from the Flood once again. You remember the space zombies that we haven't seen in quite a while in the video? Well, they had sent some pure forms, which immediately died, but then a few hours later ended up turning into hives and ranged forms to defend those hives. I didn't think much of it, and I just set everyone to a specific area so that they're not getting ambushed by the Flood. At first, actually, I kinda liked the idea because I thought they might attack other enemies. And indeed they would, but they would also start producing large tank forms to send towards us to try to kill us. At first, it was only one or two, but as the days began to pass, the only raids that we were getting were from the Flood, and their hives were getting larger and larger and larger day by day. The best thing for us to have done would have been to have attacked these when they first started settling in the area, before they were producing enemies every single day for us to fight off, and before they got to this size. Those tentacle-looking things are also ranged, so if we get too close, they'll start pelting us with their organic bullets and kill us within seconds. The only thing we can do now is endure, which tended to be easier said than done when they were demolishing our defenses and we were really beginning to struggle to fend them off with many close calls. Every day quickly became a constant chore of having to rebuild walls and embrasures and traps just so that we could survive. Hunter drones in particular were great for taking out infection forms all at once, as there were many of them, but it also meant that we used up all the fuel we had in storage, so we wouldn't be able to make any quick escapes, which was very unfortunate to say the least. On the final day, an absolute behemoth barrage of flood were coming right for us. At this point, I finally understood that up until this point, they've been sending out an enemy every day to test our defenses and to trick us into thinking that we're beating them, when in reality, they were gestating a giant army. We still had about an hour or two before the reactor was ready, so we would rush to our embrasures to start trying to burn down these bastards. As our traps were quickly diminishing and our bullets were beginning to waver, the reactor finally started. No longer worried about fighting, we started rushing to the cryo-sleep caskets of the ship as our enemies continued pouring in through our entranceway. Thankfully, the turrets in our base seemed to keep them distracted just long enough for every single one of us to jump inside a cryo-sleep casket, and for the ship's AI to activate the engines just in time. Hello there, my name is Gadriar, and I am one of the Emperor's finest Marines. I'm currently stuck on this distant, isolated RimWorld in the, well, rim of the galaxy, and I need to find a way off-world. I need to get back to the Imperium to report my findings, as this planet is plagued with many, and I do mean many different types of Xenos. But since no one's going to offer me a ship to get the hell out of here, looks like I'm going to have to go find one on my own. My first destination is going to be a colony of hairy sons of bitches just to the north of my current position. We'll head that way and knock on their front door. Such a small little home, don't mind if I come in and knock it down, do you fellas? They were indeed a bunch of grotesque and disgusting hairy beastmen. Their mere existence was their greatest heresy of all. I suppose it's about time for me to show them a little bit of the Emperor's true light. And by that, of course, I mean that I'm going to approach their little village here and put a few holes in a few noggins, and then after they're all dead, we should be good. No more, no less. It wasn't just these hairy men, though, as I would also encounter some strange four-legged furry beasts that were attacking me, which I can only assume were their wives. Their women were pig ugly. Realistically, based off looks alone, I was doing them and their disgusting pig wives a favor by killing them all. Their reproduction was a sin among the entire universe, so yeah, you can thank me later. Although I didn't exactly plan on giving them the opportunity to thank me, as I was using my sword to rip their guts out of their bodies and leaving their entrails scattered throughout the village. Ah, yes, good times, but unfortunately, good times always have to come to an end, and so does the fun, as what remained of them attempted to flee as I gunned them down. Their base destroyed and their bloodlines ended, leaving us free to claim this shit heap in the name of the Emperor and all his glory. Although it's pretty dirty here, time to take out the trash. Ah, now that's much better. We started exploring the entire place to see if there's anything useful we might be able to use to contact some type of ship to get us off-world, or maybe even craft our own. My, what have we here? Stolen Imperium equipment, I see? You poor dumb creatures have no idea how bad you've messed up. I'm going to kill every single one of you. I mean, I was already, but now I really am. But first, how about a little snack? Huh? Even Marines need to keep their tummies full, sometimes. Well, we began making ourselves feel like we were at home, of course. While a rapid wildfire was off in the distance, I don't really know, we did try to fight the fire a bit to make sure that it didn't destroy the base in case there was something useful here that we needed, such as some plascrete or plasteel, which we did end up finding a little bit of, and we mostly just kind of took our time making sure we didn't miss or glance over anything. After a while, we would indeed need to begin our resource collection. The main things that we're going to need here are some components as well as steel. Lucky for us, there just so happen to be some steel structures as well as ore within these mountains, as well as some compacted machinery, just what the doctor ordered. Or perhaps chirurgeon in this case. We wanted to use these resources to build ourselves a bolter turret. It should keep us well protected, and to be honest with you, it's probably going to be our only friend for a little while, thanks to our plethora of knowledge from our Imperium education. We have access to all research, and it's definitely not because I'm lazy and just wanted to start with all the research. Shut up. The turret was also much needed as we had our furry friendos coming to attack us in a few hours, and sure as clockwork, they would end up arriving. There was just one teeny tiny problem. We had built the turret on the northmost side of this base, and they were attacking from the south. But don't you worry. Imperium technology accounts for these types of oopsie daisies, and this big badass turret is actually completely mobile. Well, we have to install it somewhere else, but you know what I mean. Thanks to our great big augmented muscles, it would be a piece of cake shifting it down south. And best of all, our new turret friend actually doesn't require any power to function, so we don't even have to worry about a power grid or solar panels or anything. It's ready to kill. Hey, look, it's killing right now. And she could keep on killing all night long. And with our help, we would easily dispatch of this piss-poor, pathetic raid. Oh, good work, girl. I knew I could count on you. I'm gonna kiss you when this camera's not looking, okay? Now, somehow, way, shape, or form, don't ask me how, these furry bastards were carrying some Fenrisian ale. About 3 bottles or so. Not sure how they got their hands on this delicious nectar, but it just so happens to be the only alcohol in the entire galaxy that can get a marine like myself drunk. Well, since it's here, I think this calls for a celebration, don't you? I mean, we are slaughtering our enemies at every turn. We're working hard. And we would keep on working hard, baby, but I must say there's not really much forest left here, so I think it's time that we move on along, don't you? We would begin heading north even further across a river to find yet another settlement of these disgusting creatures. We knew we were in the right spot. Not only could we see them from a distance, but we could smell them as well. Let the slaughter begin. Oh, ladies, please, my God, I'm trying to do you a favor here. I shouted at the top of my lungs, but alas, it seems that some creatures are just incapable of being grateful for the gifts you give them. Like a beheading. Anywho, though, we ended up sacking this base and completely killing all of its residents and inhabitants except for a few that managed to get away. Unfortunately, though, it seems that there is no ship here, nor any components for one either. You know what? I was having so much darn fun, I forgot to unload our turret and also use it. Sorry, girl. We'll get you out next time, I promise. Speaking of, it's time to go. We began heading a bit to the east to yet another of these furry beastman settlements in the desert this time around, hiding, nestled in between the hills. But I'm afraid you cannot hide from the eye of the Imperium. We quickly rushed up to the entrance of this base and unloaded our turret companion. You know, just kinda kicking our feet, shooting some Xenos, and, you know, making memories, having some fun. This base, just as all the others before it and all those who inhabit it, would end up easily falling to our bolter and also our chainsword, of course, decapitating them, entrails, all the other stuff we talked about, you know what I mean? My. Tisk, more stolen equipment, you dirty dogs. Literally. Combat stims, some of the best stims in all the galaxy that will make you fight like a damn jackrabbit on cocaine or something. Shame you guys didn't use it. Maybe it would have gave you a fraction of a chance of defeating me. But when your women look like this, nah, you probably would have died just as fast, I guess. This new base actually had some interesting materials, ceramite walls to be specific. A very difficult material to obtain, and it just so happens to be one of the resources that we need to make ourselves some vehicles. That's not a bad idea. Well, the then for the next few days, we would spend the majority of our times deconstructing these ceramite walls and stacking them up in nice little piles for us to use. We would also build ourselves a nice big assembly bench and hook it up to the power grid so that we could finally start making some of these vehicle components that we needed, like cannons, side turrets, jet engines, all the good stuff, you know. But there was just one teeny little problem. There was no priest around to bless the machine once I built it. Oh, actually there were two little problems. I need advanced components for the jet engines and I don't have any, and I don't have a way to make any. But thankfully, this planet doesn't just have a bunch of filthy, furry xenos and other disgusting creatures that were abhorrent abominations. It also had some outlanders who were some good, pure humans, and you know what they had with them? Advanced components, just what we needed. Thankfully, we could trade off plenty of weapons and other different resources and materials that we had found at all these bases that we had been destroying in exchange for about 5 or 6 components. Days later, and we would finally end up returning home with said components, and we are now rocking and rolling. It does also appear that in our temporary absence, the enemy's corpses have rotted, which is a problem, and you'll see why in a moment. But right now, we were going to focus on finishing up those jet engines as well as finally crafting ourselves a proper Valkyrie gunship. Oh, hot damn, we are cooking! And we're also going to be refining. You see, we're having to tear apart the fermenting barrels that these filthy furballs were using to refine into some chem fuel, and not a lot of it, I'm afraid. You see, we had received word from an AI on the planet that they have a ship and they're willing to take us off-world. Now, they claim to be friendly, but if they're not, we'll figure out some way to digitalize our fist and to rip out their heart with it, metaphorically, I suppose. Either way, this is just what we had been waiting for to get the hell off this planet. The only problem was, it was pretty far away, as you can see, basically on the other side of the planet. And we don't currently have near enough fuel to get us over there, or even anywhere close to there. Now, I know what you're thinking, just make more, right? And well, I am, but it's going to take a while because we don't have a lot of organic materials in the area like cacti or wood. This is where it would come in handy to chop up our enemies into tiny little bits, put them into the biofuel refiner, and then use them to power the engines of the Valkyrie, but we can't because they rotted. So we'll just have to make do with what we have. Late one hot and sandy evening, we had a decent-sized group of imps coming to try to kill us, I suppose, and it looks like they're even wielding a bow and arrow, and oh my, is that a spear? Whatever will we do? I must not have been paying very good attention because it looks like another group of them had come from the south and started attacking our gunship actually, but luckily old Debbie here managed to save us. Thanks, baby girl. Oh, yeah, I named her Debbie. Yeah. The next day, we were just minding our business, chatting with Debbie, enjoying the sun, and refining some more fuel for the ship. And that is exactly when a stranger, a cave explorer by the name of Freya, decided to join us here. We were fine with it as long as she was a human, and once she approached, I don't know about those eyes. What is that? Upon closer inspection, it would indeed appear that she is fully human. Oh, I was going to cut her head off. Almost lost my cool there. Welcome aboard to the Imperium, ma'am, although you could use some more proper attire. Expending what few resources we have left, we would quickly throw together an armor bench so we can create some of the most common armor in the Imperium, some Akkadian armor for our new friend. Only the finest. Better than nothing, that's for sure. Ah, there she is. Now you really look the part, Freya. Now, if only we could find you a proper firearm, but at the moment we have much more pressing priorities to deal with, like the fact that our Valkyrie has some fuel in it, and I think this might be enough to get us to this landed ship, but it's it's currently missing quite a bit of ammunition, and by quite a bit, I mean that it's completely empty, and we will be flying without any protection. Not an ideal situation, to say the least, so we're going to be using up the last of the steel and components that we have in the area to make ourselves some ammunition, and we would even let our new friend here go ahead and load up the ship. Man, she sure is a hard worker. Glad we found her. Oh, good lord, Debbie, come now. I barely know her. She's just a friend. Just get on the ship, come on. You're so dramatic all the time. Up and away we go, out west into the skies near this AI-landed ship, apparently. We would end up touching down some hours later, and yes, indeed, it is a ship, it would appear. Thankfully, we didn't have to digitalize our fist and rip out the AI's heart, or whatever I said there earlier, as it did indeed seem to be friendly, and there were also no weapons aboard this ship. The only issue was it was going to take about 1 month of this planet's calendar before it was ready to take off into the stars, so we're going to be fighting off a lot of raids in the meantime. Now, I had no issue with fighting, sleeping, eating, and defecating in the rainy mud, but our new Acadian friend, not so much. Apparently, our little soldier here has something called basic human needs. Blech. Well, apparently that also means we need to cut down some trees and at least make her a fairly basic home to eat meals and also keep the rain off her head while she sleeps. As we were dealing with this, it would seem that some filthy cultists, worshipping some filthy chaos god, no doubt, and those dirty pigskins on the planet were about to fight. I'd say they were coming here to us for the ship, and they just so happened to meet each other. We had planned on just letting them kill each other, and the victor gets their head smashed in by us, but apparently some waster pirates were also coming here for the exact same reason, and they started attacking the cultists, and it was a whole bloodbath. Now, we were really excited to let them kill each other, but as the pigskin came up and ended up finishing off what was left of the cultists, we thought that it was about time for us to get involved. Freya took the Valkyrie and landed nearby, attempting to crush a few of them, but slightly missing, and began firing off the ship's weapon systems. Now, I'm really glad that we made all that ammunition, especially since Freya is kind of soft and weak. This would be the perfect weapon for her to use while I get down and dirty with our Xeno friends. Once that great, big, beautiful kerfuffle of enemies was finished and we didn't have to worry about that anymore, we started finally working on those little homes, and looks like we have to deal with enemies once more. But hey, it's our old pals, the Itaken. It's been at least 2 to 3 weeks since we've smashed one of these furballs into a fine red and pink mist onto the ground, so we were actually pretty excited. I do find, however, that the hairiness of these beasts causes my chainsword to get a little clogged up, you could say, causing me to need to clean it afterward, but you gotta take the good with the bad. Oh, hey, looks like we killed them all. Well, I'm glad that that was fun, because something tells me that we're going to be having a lot more encounters like that before we finally get off-world. We would eventually set up our very basic little huts here. This way, our new friend Freya doesn't end up having several mental breaks or freezing to death this winter. With all the raids coming our way and all these ugly factions trying to kill us as much as possible, I thought it might be a good idea for us to collect as many resources as possible in our downtime, i.e. steel and components, mostly of course, as well as a little bit of wood for some trenches. But alas, this too would constantly be interrupted by raids. This time around, it seems to be a great big raid from a bunch of impids, once again coming with the ambition, the hope, and the dream of taking us down by poking us in the ribs with some very sharp sticks. But my friends, I'm afraid that that will not be the case. Oh, you poor saps. Even though the tribespeople themselves were not much of an issue, I'm afraid that their flames would linger on furthermore, and we had a great big fire that we had to put out before it burned down our freshly built homes. These fires were outrageous. Don't worry, sweetie snookums, I'm here to save you. Thankfully, the rain would give us a helping hand with putting out the fire. Debbie and the homes were fine, and now we could focus on working on on our defenses, using a lot of the wood and steel that we had collected to build some trenches so that we could dive down into them for some cover when we're getting raided, and we would also build some steel barricades on the outside of the trenches, giving us additional cover. I don't see anyone hitting our noggins from a distance now. Unfortunately, it would seem that the Itaken had the exact same thought, and instead of trying to raid us and shoot us in the head, they've decided to fire mortars over our heads and siege us. Damn their brilliant tactic. It's just a shame that we have a Valkyrie gunship that we would land nearby and start lasering and bulleting, I guess, them to death and killing them and finishing the siege once for all. Credit where credit is due, though, for a species that barely has 2 brain cells to rub together on a damn good day. That wasn't a bad tactic. It wouldn't work, but not a bad tactic. Now, at first, I was pretty pissed off that they tried to siege us, though we were expecting something of the sort, but afterwards I was actually pretty excited. Looks like we won't have to be cooking any meals anytime soon. We would, however, need to build ourselves a proper storage area, as we have a lot of new items like mortar shells and plenty of resources like steel and wood that are just sitting outside that need to be, well, shelved. Freya was also beginning to turn purple, and not in a good way. I guess there isn't a good way. She had hypothermia, which was going to become a really big problem. To keep her nice and toasty warm, we ended up building quite a few torches in her room, giving it a good bit of heat. Now, we didn't have to worry about this, as our more advanced armor kept us nice and toasty already. With the snow falling and winter here, there were plenty of fun activities for us to take part in, like slaughtering a bunch of pigskins when they were constantly flying down from the sky in their drop pods to try to get our ship and to kill us and whatever. And as mentioned, obviously, these raids were becoming commonplace, and they were to be expected, and killing pigskins and other different disgusting xenos was just commonplace. Very fun, a nice, kind of boring thing to do at this point. You know, it just gets a little bit repetitive. So, we were also doing some other recreational activities like playing chess together. It really helped break up the monotony of having to kill people like every other day, if not more often, and it kept our wits sharp and was great for conversation. Though with my gigantic fingers in the armor, I found it a little bit hard to move the pieces, but whatever. And yes, for those of you interested in my love life, Debbie and I hadn't talked for quite a few days. She just can't play chess like Freya can. Quite literally, she doesn't have fingers. But as the ground was finally thawing out, the ship only had about 6 or 7 hours before it was finally ready to launch. Looks like we're going to be getting off this planet in one piece. We would quickly load Freya into a cryosleep casket to ensure that nothing bad happened while we were waiting for the reactor to finally finish up those last few trickle charges. But it would seem we have one last final fight before we can depart. A gigantic hive of xenomorphs were coming right for us. No doubt a hive awakened by the reactor finally in its last hours. I suppose our work isn't quite done yet. Here goes nothing. Debbie, I know you're mad at me, baby, but I need you. I need you now real bad. Would you give me this one last stand together? You are far too good to me. These horrific monstrosities were coming right for us. Debbie and I firing at them, killing several of them as they were clamoring and tearing through the dirt on their way here until Debbie ran out of ammo. It would seem she's incapable of protecting herself and me now. I'm sorry, baby, but I gotta leave you behind. With the reactor and the AI now ready, I rushed to a cryosleep casket and hopped right in as Debbie, in her last final moments, actually managed to lure all the xenomorphs near her, protecting us one last final time. I'm afraid it's time for us to leave. So long, cruel world. Hello, folks, and welcome to the Wasteland. A vibrant, nuclear-polluted hellscape full of some of the most ruthless pirates, raiders, and bandits, as well as super mutants that the world has to offer. It is also home to some of the most majestic, mutated, mutilated creatures you will ever lay eyes upon, such as myself. That's right, friendo, the name is Meat, and I am a Deathclaw, a stupid, sexy Deathclaw, and even better, a sentient one at that. That's right, baby, I'm a lost experiment. I've been given sentience, and I'm getting the hell off this planet. Just like all good things, humans have ruined this planet with their petty wars, and as you can see, they've turned the entire place into a radioactive hellscape. The planet may have changed, but there is one thing that never changes. Humanity. Wait, no, I think the line is war. Anyways, ways off this planet's surface and into the stars quite literally don't just fall from the sky, so for the time being, while we're trying to plan out our escape of how the hell to get off this rock, we are going to need to cut down some trees to build ourselves a little shelter. We picked a nice clear spot next to this little mountain here that was oddly smooth and looked kinda... Oh, it's an ancient danger, would you look at that? Normally, these types of structures from the old world would have some useful types of machines and or equipment inside, so we decided to break through one of the walls. After bursting through the wall though, I noticed that there appears to be some extra structure on the inside. A vault-tech door. Using my large fumbling claws, I would pry the door apart and enter what appears to be some type of living space. Long since abandoned, I take it. Hard to say exactly what happened to the occupants, but as I began exploring more, I think I ended up finding one of them. A handsome, rotting man in a nice blue vault suit with what appears to may have been beautiful golden locks at one point. Not so much now. He doesn't appear to have any wounds that we could see, although he has been decomposing for quite some time. If I had to guess, he's probably locked himself away in here and starved to death. On the bright side, I do suppose that means he won't be needing this humble little abode anymore, and we can claim it for ourselves. Our very own vault, all for a Deathclaw. Oh, the irony. I must say I am plumb tickled pink, though, that we ended up finding this little teeny vault here, as it is going to be much safer for us to rest in at night. Even for a Deathclaw, the wasteland can be pretty dangerous, as one might imagine. I gathered up some of the remaining wood that we had cut down and started building myself a nice warm fire inside here. I would be able to turn the lights on, but I'm still pretty unfamiliar with power production as a large death-clawed creature, but a nice cozy fire to keep us warm all night long will have to suffice, I suppose. I suppose it's true, as the old saying goes, one man's starvation inside their own vault is another man's, home sweet home treasure. Dude, I really gotta get rid of that corpse. He smells terrible. We took his carcass outside the very next morning to let him air out a bit. As you can see, he's a little gassy. Blech. Man, oh man, that smell of all that rotting corpse has really got my appetite going. Not really, but I am hungry. Very hungry. Looks like it's time for a little bit of a hunting trip, eh? Thankfully, the wasteland is always packed full of some mutated beast for us to hunt, and my hands are quite literally deadly weapons. My claws make it extremely easy to rip a deer carcass in half so I may feast upon the ooey gooey insides. Now that I have a full tummy, I can start cleaning up this shit show on the inside, like all the corpse bile and rubble. Just because I'm a Deathclaw doesn't mean I don't have standards. And since it seems like we're going to be living here for quite a while, I don't really want to have to deal with any of the unsightly, grotesque views that we have been dealing with. This world is grotesque enough, that doesn't mean that our dwelling needs to be the same. Speaking of which, as time was passing and we were just trying to survive at this point, hunting and things like that, I eventually noticed that there was a nearby ancient structure, probably some type of factory for producing old world tanks and other war weapons, or maybe Mr. Handies, I'm not really sure. But of course we began to think that they might have something useful there to help us in our end goal of getting the hell off this mutated, disgusting rock, so we started heading that way. On our way there, though... It would seem that we've been ambushed by raiders. In particular, though, it appeared that it was only one singular raider with a pipe rifle. Nothing we couldn't handle, I'm sure, about as strong as a Brahmin. As we approached one another in the night, my thick, scaly skin would do me many a favor against those pathetic bullets, and with my claws I would rip and tear until eventually she hit the ground. Defeated in a pool of her own blood, she pathetically, but also maybe courageously, tried to begin crawling away from me. As I towered over her, a beast of destruction, I thought, that's kind of impressive, and so I decided to spare her life. Maybe she could be my little plaything or something. Either way, by morning, we were headed towards the ancient structure once more, making our way there, finally arriving some odd hours later. An incredibly large place reminds me of the facility that I was experimented on. Sad. Alright, my little plaything, here's the deal. I'm going to go into that ancient structure, and you are going to stay right here where you are. And if you don't, I will track you down and I will rip you into about 50 or so pieces. Okay. It would seem there are some vicious packs of feral dogs all around, but if you ask me, I think that's just more eaten. Now, finally making my way towards the structure, I use my claws to rip these disgusting, mangy mutts into about 100 different pieces and quickly killed them. Finally, time for a snack. I have been absolutely starving. Nothing like a little bit of dog chow. Oh, am I right? Ever so quickly, I began prying apart all the doors and heading into what appears to be an ancient factory before the bombs dropped on this pathetic little world. They had some resources inside, like different types of textiles and medicines, but there was nothing all that interesting, I must say. As night began to fall, I gathered up some wood outside and built my little pet and myself a nice warm fire to keep us cozy all night long. We got some much needed shut-eye, and she would also be in a contained room so I could make sure she didn't sneak off. The following day, I ended up searching throughout the rest of the factory, and I found some other things like stem packs and textiles and fuel and yada yada yada, but nothing really notable, so we began heading back home. My little pet wasn't too keen on wanting to leave, but after a few words of encouragement, like saying I'll eat your heart, she was ready to go, and eventually we would arrive back home. Welcome to your new dwelling, my little friend. Feel free to make yourself at home, build yourself a nest, or whatever it is your species does. I'm still not all that sure on the details, to be honest with you. I must say our new bandit companion was almost like my very own personal dolly, so I decided to take off her mercenary outfit and put her in some much more fitting attire. Ah, there she is. Who would have known that blue and yellow was your color? I did. I knew that. If you're gonna be living in a vault, you gotta look the part, sister, and you definitely do now. For a time, things were pretty darn boring. We didn't have much going on. We had some wild animals attack us, of course, but thanks to my large death claw figure and stature and claws in general, we were easily taking care of them. But something interesting did end up happening. Well, a ship to get us off-world. I suppose I was wrong earlier on when I said a way off this planet doesn't just fall from the sky, because that's quite literally what just happened. It would appear this AI has landed a ship on the west coast of the world, which is a little bit of a problem because we are much closer to the east coast, and it looks like it's going to be about a month's journey or so. Why is this a problem? Well, we don't currently have near enough food to make that journey without starving. Looks like we'll need to start prepping for that. To begin, I'm going to start chopping up some of the wild animals, and we'll let our little pet bandit here go about cooking us some meals for the journey. But food won't be the only problem. As mentioned, the wasteland is incredibly dangerous, so I am going to be wearing some metal armor. I know, don't get me wrong now, I know my skin is very beautiful and also very tough, but having some metal over top of that makes me even tougher. But before we could set out on our journey, we ended up having a group of super mutants coming to slaughter us. Looks like it's a good thing we put the armor on. I know these beasts aren't exactly known for their intelligence, but do they really think that 4 of them could take us out? I highly doubt they'll have a chance? The group of green giants began making their way towards our home. I decided to take the lead on this and let our bandit companion stand behind me, firing over my shoulder or underneath my gigantic leathery arms. This tactic was working absolute wonders, and eventually we had ended up killing half of the squad of mutants. One of them even dropped us a pretty little present. Thanks to my brute strength, this large piece of rebar with a giant piece of concrete on the end would be perfect for bashing in heads. Specifically the soft and squishy heads of the remaining super mutants in the area looking to do us harm. Since they weren't coming to us, we would have to come to them, and we quickly did so and beat their brains out, and yeah, so we ended up killing them actually, except for one of them. This one though, not so lucky. This one here though that we beat down a few moments ago, going by the name of Seth, which is actually a pretty normal name all things considered, was very lucky and would not be beaten to death by us. Good job, Seth. It's your lucky day. We quickly took him back to the vault and chucked him into the teeny tiny little room where we would actually start trying to recruit him. Now here's the fun part. Since super mutants aren't all that intelligent, and when they see a large deathclaw that could easily rip them apart, they would actually be willing to join us pretty quickly. In other words, Seth joined us. Hi, Seth. I must say, it's nice not being the only large towering monster around humans anymore. Besides having Seth here on our side with his also leathery skin and large, powerful muscles, we should be pretty good to go to make our journey towards the ship. Let's do that. The very next morning, we would set out with all of our meals and other resources and items in tow, heading for the ship. In the meantime, back home, we ended up having yet another group, though this one much larger, of super mutants coming to attack us. Luckily for us, we were already gone, and unlucky for them. They did end up completely destroying our little makeshift base though, so maybe that'll satisfy them, I don't know. Now, the only option that we really had was for us to abandon our old home, which we would quickly end up doing. Not really a big deal, as we didn't plan on going back there, and it has served its purpose. However, abandoning our old base for whatever reason seems to have upset the NCR. Now, as to why they even care, or possibly if this is just them now detecting us, I don't know, but they are really mad at us and looks like they're gonna try to kill us at some point. Here's hoping that we're well off this planet before that happens. There is a little issue with that, as most of the territories out west also appear to be controlled by the NCR, as well as plenty of super mutant factions. A more pressing issue, though, that we're currently faced with is the fact that we are currently starving. Looks like we didn't account for the fact that we were going to be bringing Seth along with us. Thankfully, we would end up encountering a caravan of wastelanders who were looking to do some trading with us. We could purchase food from them, or so I thought. It looks like they don't want to buy anything from us, even though they do have a great big juicy Brahmin that we could eat, but we have no way to pay for it. Unfortunately for them, when faced with starvation or violence for food, we have to choose violence. Strangely, they didn't appear to be hostile towards us, even though we were attacking them. I just thought they hadn't seen us yet and we could ambush them. When we did this though, they still didn't really fight back. Perhaps they're surrendering, or they're just a group of pacifists. Either way, looks like we're free to take their Brahmin. Now then, with hunting season over, and we finally have some meat to fill our bellies, as well as some agave fruit that is somehow growing in between all these radioactive fields, we can finally set up camp here for about a day or so and start cooking enough meals for the rest of our travels, which we would end up doing. Once completed, it was finally time for us to head back out once more. Our travels would take many another day and week and so on and so forth, and as we finally approached the ship, we had an ambush again. Oddly enough, it wasn't the NCR, nor bandits, nor super mutants, but it was actually just a couple of man-hunting rad scorpions. Nothing we couldn't handle, I thought. As they approached in the rainy night, Alice and Seth began firing at them as I came to crush them like the pathetic arthropods that they are. but after a few stings, I ended up feeling a little woozy. This was less than ideal, but thanks to Seth's pipe shotgun, we ended up blasting the little bastard into next week, and we were good. I'm very glad that we ended up keeping him instead of murdering him. These rad scorpions were looking absolutely delicious and would be perfect food for the few remaining days of travel we have left. Real quick though, guys, before we butcher them, could we maybe start tending to my wounds? My blood is starting to feel like cottage cheese. Once I was finally back on my feet, we made the last little trek to the landed ship, arriving shortly thereafter, and it was just as described, a landed ship. Time to start this little red wagon and to get the hell out of here, of course. Well, there was just one little issue, and most of you probably already know, but in case there's any newcomers here, the ship takes about 15 days or so to power up, and in doing so, it is going to let out a signal that will be detectable by everyone. Super mutants, the NCR, manhunting groups of rad scorpions and toxic animals, yada yada yada. So basically, we're going to need to defend ourselves for that long. I am still a bit injured, so perhaps I should use up one of those stim packs to kind of get me back in action a little bit faster. We would also begin spending the first day or so cutting down a lot of trees in the near area, trying to collect as much wood as possible so we could set up a little bit of a camp, and we could also set up some defenses as well. But before we had the chance to set up said defenses, we had an attack from the NCR. It would appear that they had sent many a trooper our way, making good on their promise from earlier to try to hunt us down and finish us off for whatever we did, I guess. As they approached our camp and the ship, we wasted no time engaging them, trying to keep them from damaging the ship itself, bashing in the head of one trooper while the others fired at us. We immediately began attempting to take cover in some nearby ruins, hoping that this would help us keep them from shooting us between the eyes. As our bandit was hiding, Seth and I would finish off those remaining, and once they were dead, the rest would attempt to flee the area. No doubt they'll definitely be back though, and in much larger numbers. Now, something interesting about the NCR is the fact that they brought even better gear that we could use. In particular, our little pet bandit would end up equipping one of the nice warm coats that one of the troopers were wearing. This might seem pretty trivial, but we were right in the midst of fall and it was getting very cold, so much so that we were afraid she was going to be hypothermic, and of course this coat would stop that. As well, we could of course make some ourselves, but the problem is waste leather isn't near as warm. Speaking of our bandit though, unfortunately she would end up getting an infection in her right leg. We immediately began tending to this as we couldn't let our little plaything that we had grown so fond of so quickly die. As we were waiting around to see if this infection would rot her leg off, or if we would have to remove it with our viciously sharp claws, she ended up also getting muscle parasites. Alice, you poor thing. You just can't catch a break, huh? Try not to die over there. And while she was trying not to die for the next few days, we would go about collecting plenty of berries and also doing a bit of hunting with the wildlife in the area to feed everyone. However, berries are not the only thing that we had been collecting, as all the wood we had chopped down was finally ready to be used for some proper defenses like barricades. These should give us a good bit of cover during the coming raids. By this point, Alice would finally develop an immunity to the infection in her legs, and now she can get off her lazy ass and start helping us build more defenses, such as some wooden spike traps. Since we haven't bothered, nor do we really possess the intelligence, other than Alice, but she is a slave and thus she cannot perform research to go about researching any projects, I cannot express how crucial these wooden spike traps would be in the coming weeks. But I think watching them in action kill quite a few raiders, as well as one being a glowing ghoul raider, really speaks for itself, eh? By this point we had been here for about a week or so, I'm not really sure, but I do know that it finally started snowing and was getting very, very cold, so we didn't want to sleep on the ground anymore. We ended up using a lot of the wood in the area to build ourselves a proper shelter, turning this frozen wasteland hell into a frozen wasteland home. A nice cozy place for us to sleep at night outside of the elements, as well as a nice table and chairs to eat our meals and to spend some time together. As we continued waiting for the ship to finally power up, we ended up having a lot of manhunter packs, which was the vast majority of the battles I think that we were dealing with. Now, I didn't want to bore you guys too much with a lot of of that, but we also had quite a few fights that was mostly raiders and bandits, as well as super mutants. And during one of these particular fights with super mutants, things didn't exactly go to plan, as we had engaged in a firefight with a few of them. One of them with a pipe shotgun blasted Alice right between the eyes, killing her instantly. She had made it so far on this journey with us, and we were only a few days out from the ship powering up. Gone too soon. We quickly took our vengeance by smashing the bastard into a fine wasabi-like paste onto the ground, but even our revenge would not fix the grief that we had felt for her. We would quickly give her a burial not too far away from our base. And then, a few days later, we actually dug her up and started eating her because I'm a Deathclaw, for God's sake, and she was our pet thing, slave, whatever. Look, we liked her, we really grew fond of her, but we need food, okay? Besides, I'm sure Alice would understand if she wasn't dead, and also I hadn't already swallowed her head. These battles had also come at a cost for us as well. As you can see, Seth had lost many of his fingers, and I actually had a permanent gunshot to my right eye, but other than that, we were a-okay. And finally, slowly but surely, my friends, we have made our way to the ship powering up in several more hours, but we're almost off this damn dirty rock. We had planned on spending our last final hours doing some luxurious activities like sleeping the rest of the day that remains away, maybe playing the game of a board game, as well as some horseshoes, and just trying to have fun. Wow, great. Looks like the NCR isn't quite finished with us. This is odd because we hadn't had a raid from them in so long. It looks like though they've been preparing some of their forces. They had many a trooper along with him, as well as several veteran rangers, some of which were actually wearing power armor and oddly enough had equipped some miniguns. This wouldn't be easy, but if we wait them out, I think we could just run away. But for whatever reason, Seth here decided that he wanted to play the hero, and he wanted to hold them off as I made my grand escape. I actually tricked him into doing so. I told you those super mutants were very intelligent, didn't I? I quickly rushed to one of the pods, hopping in and sealing myself inside. Good luck, Seth. Now, not to worry, as we did leave a secret weapon up Seth's sleeve, a doomsday rocket launcher, a nice little reward that we achieved from one of our previous fights. Don't worry, Seth, you got this, buddy, hell yeah. Well, now that's just unfortunate. Good try, though, Seth. You almost had him there, buddy. Funny enough, though, I think he really did buy us enough time, as it looks like the reactor is finally powered up. Time for us to get the hell out of here. See you later. Why, hello there. The name is Steve, and I am a medieval peasant. I live on a planet in the outer rim of the galaxy, although my medieval education doesn't really allow me to comprehend that. This is a brutal planet, a rough and tough place where the kings, queens, and lords all get fatter and fatter, while the peasants such as myself starve and struggle to survive. Making matters worse, there are many rough and savage kingdoms out there that would love to subjugate me just as they do many others. But I don't plan on living under anyone's thumb. I'm going to make my own way. If I could find a way off this damn rock, I would, but alas, that doesn't seem to be the case. No, I must make my own destiny, my own way forward, and right now it would seem the only way forward is to claim these lands for myself and to build myself a nice stone chunk hut. I spent the entire first day in these new lands stacking stone after stone to build several a wall, but this process of building my hut is going to be a few-day project, I would say. Time for me to set up a camp for the night. A nice warm, bright fire to keep away predators as I sleep. Now I just need a little bit of berries and we should be good to go. With a full belly and a semi-functional structure, it's time for me to get some much-needed shut-eye. The ground is so much more comfortable when it's warmed by a fire, a nice slate pillow, and I am feeling like king of the world. Sweet dreams. The very next morning, it was finally time for me to finish off my little stone hut here, and I am going to be using some packed dirt for the flooring. That way we don't have any vegetation growing, and we're not getting all that dirty as we walk on it barefoot. I mean, it is dirt, so you can't really get it that clean. You know what I mean. Next up on the agenda was going to be a weapon to help me defend myself, as well as to hunt some of the local wildlife. I ended up making myself a nice short bow out of some plant fibers and wood, just what the doctor ordered. I've always been much more of a gatherer and farmer than a hunter, but I think it's time I step outside my comfort zone a bit. Starting off with some small prey, I ended up hunting a local rat in the area, took it back home and started chopping it up with some sharp stones I found on the ground, and voila, a fried rat sandwich. Well, kinda. We don't have bread, so we decided to use leaves. I like to call it a medieval peanut butter and jelly. Okay, once we had gotten the hang of this bow, though, we could start hunting some much larger prey, like some ibex rams in the area, which would end up giving us much more meat. But not only would it give us more meat to cook and eat, but it would also end up giving us much more leather. Leather that we could use to make ourselves a nice fur bed. Now, if you're like me and you thought a nice warm dirt bed with a rock pillow was comfortable, wait until you get a feel for this bad boy. Now that we have a proper shelter, a proper bed, as well as some food, we need a place to store all these things, such as the meat that we're getting so it doesn't go bad all that quick, as well as leathers and other items. So as you can see, we began working on our storage facilities, being some shelves in our hut. But in a very small corner of our hut, we would also end up digging out a small root cellar. Now this is actually going to be where we store all of our meat and berries and other items that we can actually eat. That way they don't go bad as fast, and underground they'll stay a bit cooler. This will be perfect too once winter finally comes. That way we don't have all of our food lying outside where animals could get it when they get hungry as well. These lands were once home to some majestic kingdom or keep or village or city or something. Anyhow, there are a bunch of ruins from old cities and what have you past, so we decided to start deconstructing some of their old monuments. I doubt they'll be needing them. Besides, we needed the stone much more than they did, as we planned on repurposing it for a big, warm hearth. This would be perfect for keeping us warm once winter and fall actually come around. As of right now, it's summer, but you can never be too careful. Now that we have all the basic things that we need for the hut, I'm going to start sprucing the place up a bit with some proper wooden furniture, a nice cottage dresser, a nice cottage table, and also just a table with some chairs where we can eat our meals, and an extra chair in case we were to maybe have a guest or a lady friend, if you know what I'm saying. Ah, yes, I am incredibly lonely. I don't even need a wife or a girlfriend. I just kinda want somebody. Ah, but alas, for the time being, it would seem I must be very lonely and try to just wait out this storm of no socializing. Oh, it would seem that we actually have a trader. Perfect. I was happy to see quite a few friendly faces, especially since I assumed the first people that we would meet here would be trying to kill us. Anyhow, though, we decided to do a bit of trading with this nice caravan. It would seem that they were willing to purchase many of the leathers that we had in storage, as well as all of our logs that we had been cutting down in the forest here as well, which was absolutely perfect, as that was the real kicker here in this deal. And we would actually end up getting our very own mule. A handsome young lady. She'll also have to suffice as our friend, as well as being our pack animal. She's not much for conversation, but she'll make for a good listener, I'm sure. I ended up naming her Tater. That way it's sorta like potato, because, well, you know, I just kinda thought it was a quirky little name, and also because if we run out of food this winter, well, but there's no need to think about the worst case scenario, okay? As for right now, Tater and I were getting better acquainted. She was riding me around on her back, and we loved each other. We were the best of pals. There were many advantages to having a mountable animal. Not only would my work be all that much faster because I could ride her around whenever I needed to travel far distances to collect wood, not like you're seeing right now because it's right next to our hut, but we would also be much faster when we were being attacked by mountain folk like we are right now. It would seem to only be one attacker, but they are carrying a short bow, meaning we have no ranged advantage on them. It's a good thing that we purchased our mule. As they were quickly approaching, I also threw together a spike trap, hoping to try to lead them through it after they came towards us. Unfortunately though, they took more of an action of going behind our stone hut and beating the walls, trying to come through it. Of course, we couldn't allow this to happen, and something of a shootout began for a hot moment before... It would seem that an arrow straight to the chest, hitting the old blood-pumping organ, finished him off nice and good, and we are now safe and sound. I decided to chuck his body down by some nearby hills. Now, I thought about throwing him in the pond out behind our house, letting him rot, and we would use him as compost, but I didn't want to contaminate the water, even though that is also where I go tinkle. Either way, though, we are also going to be using that water in our little garden that we are planting some hay grass as well as some potatoes in right next to the hut itself as well. We need to prep for winter. Now, I love hunting and gathering berries, but they don't exactly satiate the old tummy. Ironically, as we are preparing for fall and winter and the snows to come, we ended up having a heat wave happen, so we need to prepare ourselves for that, otherwise we might not make it to see fall and winter. Because of our hearth on the inside of the hut, as one might imagine, it stays quite warm inside, and a heat wave with a warm hearth isn't exactly ideal. So we're going to need to build quite a few passive coolers to keep us nice and chill. After building up to 4 of them, it was 88 degrees Fahrenheit inside, which isn't exactly chilled, but it was much better than the almost 115 degrees outside. Now that we have a safe place to retreat to when things get a little bit too hot outside during our work, I think it's time for us to start working on some proper defenses. Just some simple wooden barricades surrounded by wooden spike traps. That way, if any of our enemies get a little bit too close, they shouldn't be there for very long, if you know what I'm saying. As weeks went by and fall was just around the corner, a very large forest fire was scourging these lands, and accompanied with a heat wave, it was sickening. As we continued living out our days here, hunting animals and what have you, I decided that we needed better weapons to go about doing so. I would end up building myself and crafting for myself a nice crossbow as well as a steel knife. This crossbow, though it does take much longer to reload, has damn near double the damage, is much more accurate, and also I feel really sets us apart from the other scavenging dirt poor peasants in the area. After a while, we ended up having a treehouse builder by the name of Dowith who wanted to join us here completely free of charge. A lady, by the way. We quickly accepted, not because we're hoping that she'll fall in love with us, although my heart did skip a beat when I saw her beautiful impid face for the very first time, but also because we are good folks here, and we are looking to create our own dynasty, as if we can't leave the planet, it's really the only thing that we can do. But there was just one teeny tiny problem with having our new friend here. Our stone hut was not even close to being worthy of being in the presence of a lady, especially not a lady of her caliber. So, as you could imagine, we did the only sensible thing, and we started sprucing the place up. Enough of the disgusting packed dirt floor. We have a beautiful female within our midst. We needed to make things a little bit better by adding in some proper wood flooring and also her very own bed with an end table. Sorry about that, little lady. Hopefully this suits your needs much better. One thing's for sure, it's definitely much more beautiful, and especially having a woman's touch around, we can rest easy now. After speaking with Duith and getting to know her a bit better though, apparently not only is she a treehouse builder now as an adult, but as a young lady, she was a hunter/scavenger. So these ancient city ruins and things that we've been tearing down, she apparently likes to go through those and find useful and valuable items from the past. Well, ma'am, in our travels, you'll be pleased to know that we have spotted something of an ancient structure in a near northwestern section of the mountains here. Perhaps the two of us could go and explore it together. And indeed we would. The following night, after the thunderstorm had dissipated from the area, the two of us would go, and we decided to enter this structure in hope of riches and maybe something else, weapons, gold, who knows? But what we would actually find inside would change our lives forever. A large, fairly open room filled with tables and also some type of metallic-looking cylinders. They appeared to be ancient and yet not, all at the same time. A very strange, faint glow emanated from some of the items, I suppose you could call them. Within the blink of an eye, Dawith decided to attempt to open one, and they all sprang open. Corpses lie piled up on the ground. We found our riches of gold and rare earth minerals, but at what cost? What had happened to these people? One of which, with a faint grunt in her voice, was attempting to crawl away, barely alive, barely even awake. So, of course, we took her back to our hut to rescue her and begin tending to her wounds. She was injured and she was sick, but she seemed to be an ally, at least for now. She was wearing some type of strange armor, I suppose it was, with a very odd hairstyle. Unsure what kingdom she belongs to, or even belonged to. Not only would we rescue a friendly stranger, though, but we had also found a matchlock musket on the inside of the ruins. It would seem that we're not the only adventurers who had entered at some point, although it's hard to say what happened to the last. Nevertheless, Dawith seems to be quite familiar with this type of technology, and thus she handles the rifle now. At some point, we had finally got our harvest of potatoes and hay grass going, so we should be good for winter, although we hadn't accounted for a third mouth to feed, not including Tater the mule. Yes, that's right. Shorty, the ancient one, decided to join us. But once she was awake and able to tell us more, it doesn't seem like we'll need to worry about being here for winter. She started filling our head with tales of some type of magical machine, I think she called it, that could take us off of this planet, away from the evils of this world and the dirty rat race that is this medieval society and system. Apparently, she and her cohorts used this machine to arrive here many, many, many years ago, and she hopes that it's still operational to get us off of the planet. This seemed like a fairy tale, but it might just be worth a shot. The only problem is, this machine is apparently on the other side of the planet down south. So the journey will take us a very, very long time as well. Because of this, we are going to need to prepare for such a long journey in terms of food and other resources, and of course, we're going to have to give Shorty enough time to heal up from her wounds. Otherwise, she's going to be weighing us down and slowing us down, and we might not make it at all. Well, one of the first things that we started doing was using a lot of our hay that we had grown. Instead of feeding it to Tater the mule, we would actually weave it together in a fiber-like material to make ourselves some proper backpacks. Now, can these hold a lot of additional weight? No, unfortunately not, but they can hold a fat stack of potatoes and berries, which might just be what we need to survive. This will not be an easy journey. This will be probably the hardest thing that any of us have done in our entire lives. Food is scarce, the road is dangerous, and this machine might not even work once we arrive. But it's better than sitting here. As the weeks passed, Shorty was healing and we were being attacked by savage kingdoms who had detected us in the area. a lady in full plate armor was coming right for us. But thanks to our clever use of traps as well as our new musket, we might just stand a chance against her, as she was incredibly injured by the time she pinned us against our pond. And with that, a good few flames from Dowith, and this lady was as good as toast. No pun intended. As for her companion, she wasn't all that intelligent and ran right into one of our traps, incapacitating her instead of killing her, so we quickly approached to finish the job. We should have stripped her ahead of time, as that leather armor would have been useless, but I suppose that Steve, the poor Neanderthal-like bastard he is, was just so overcome with emotions. Nevertheless, we would chuck their corpses down in our corpse pile. The only thing is, with them knowing of our position now, these raids will never stop, and these two will not be the last of the enemies that we see. Thankfully, after about another day or so, though, Shorty was fully healed and we were all ready to travel. Well, first Shorty had to re-equip a weapon of hers. Here's hoping the old shotgun is still operational. I think a few of these 12-gauge slugs should go right through their plate armor like butter. And with that, my friends, the four of us were off. Good old Steve, Dowith, Tater the mule, and Shorty, the ancient soldier with a magic machine to take us off the planet. You know, as we were traveling, that story sounded better in our heads at first. I'm not so sure about it now, but too late. We stopped in at a nearby friendly town, trading off as many things as we could that they were willing to accept, like our gold, for food and other things that we could actually eat, of course. Now, we wanted to keep our riches, but getting off planet and being able to eat to get down to where we're going to get off planet is much more valuable. As we were traveling for months on end, we had surpassed fall and things were getting quite cold as the nippy frostbite of winter was upon us, and I do quite mean that literally. Our poor Steve here was beginning to look rather blue and had actually already lost a few fingers to frostbite. Should we have better prepared before leaving? Yes we should have, but I had assumed that we'd be able to purchase some warmer clothing from some nearby towns or villages, but no one was willing to part with any. Naturally, we couldn't just allow Steve to die, so we began building a quick shelter out of wooden logs, something of a makeshift cabin, I suppose you could call it, building a big warm fire right in the center for all of us to enjoy. But we would not continue to dwell in our new home for very long, as we had much to do, like hunting down local wildlife, butchering said wildlife for meat, that way we could make some meals as we continue on our journey, and also for their leather, which we would end up sewing into nice warm clothing for fine folks like Steve here. It's not exactly the warmest type of clothing for our little bald friendo here, but of course this cloak will keep him from losing any more fingers. Unfortunately, though, we can't bring back those that he's lost, but, better late than never, I guess. Even without 3 of his left fingers, though, he was still a real team player, cooking meals for us from all of the wildlife meat and wild game that we had been hunting. That way we have plenty to go on as we continue down south. Perhaps the most ironic thing, though, is the fact that Steve almost died due to hypothermia, but as we continued down south, we entered some very warm jungles and no longer needed our warm clothing. Of course, though, that doesn't mean that the struggle was over, as we had been ambushed. It would seem that there was some type of bounty hunter from one of these savage kingdoms wielding a hand mortar. We'll need to be very careful. We kinda did the opposite, as we all began rushing him at once, but moving in formation would keep us out of the explosive range of the mortar, and thanks to Dowith's flames, we ended up distracting him by catching his skin on fire. With the burning man running around like his head was cut off, we easily incapacitated him. Not to worry, this time around, we ended up remembering to strip him of all of his belongings, as they would help us in our continued journey. We felt kind of pitiful for him running around with his charred skin, so we put him out of his misery. Yes, I know, we are kind and generous opponents. Let's get to the ship now, okay? Finally, we would make our last few miles of trekking through the jungle, arriving shortly thereafter. There it sat, parked just like they had left it long, long ago, undetected by any of the medieval muttonheads of the planet, it would seem. A voice without a body, very strange and magical I might add, began announcing from the ship to Shorty that it was ready to be launched. Apparently she called this an AI. Nevertheless, it appears that getting aboard that machine is going to be a close call. We have some not-so-friendly visitors coming to try to take the magical flying machine for themselves. We immediately began rushing to it around every crevice and ravine. Tater and myself arrived inside before the others, awaiting their arrival. As Shorty and Dowith were just about to make it through the doors, a large crowd of our enemies almost got to them, but they made it just in the nick of time, it would seem. But this entire army of evil medieval nobles began rocking the entire vessel by beating on it from all sides. It was almost as if we were in a massive suit of plate armor being beaten like a drum by large steel hammers. I thought for sure that this was going to be it. They were going to break through the metal walls of this vessel. They were going to come inside and they were going to kill us, but it would seem that Shorty had other plans. Well, I suppose this magical machine wasn't complete hogwash after all. Shorty, my friend, we were wrong to have ever doubted you. You've managed to give us so much more than we had ever hoped to have in this lifetime, leaving behind a beautiful blue marble of horrific and evil inhabitants. But now I suppose that only one question remains. Where do we go from here? What do we do now? I suppose now that we're free to explore the galaxy as we so choose, the world is our oyster, no pun intended. Only time shall tell. Ah, yes, yet another glorious world in the rim of the galaxy, filled with wonderful wildlife and many bloodthirsty governments and factions who only want money and power, littered with ancient relics and reminders of their sins long since past. All they've ever known is war and death, and yet somehow life not only finds a way to survive, but thrive in places like this. Some life on the planet is ancient, forgotten eons ago. That's where I come in. The Archotechs have been lost to the ages, their technology a reminder of a civilization long since forgotten. Today, all that changes. Hey there, the name is... well, the name isn't important. It doesn't matter who I am, but more what I am. I, as you could have guessed, am an Archotech, and it would seem that I've been in my slumber for far too long. Thankfully, being in my stasis pod, even for such an extended period of time, doesn't seem to have affected my body nor my augmentations for the moment, so I think I'm alright. My lord, I've been out for far longer than I thought, by millions of years. There's no signal from the others. It would seem that they've left me behind. It seems that I need to go on a bit of a quest, a journey to find my people. Oh man, no wonder they left me here. The cave system has, well, caved in. They probably had no idea that I was even here. Well, there's only one way out. It's time for us to start moving mountains. Quite literally. It's what my people are good at. I dug myself a narrow hallway to ensure that we don't have yet another cave-in on top of me this time. Ah, this world is not like the one that I had left. It would seem our terraforming efforts have went wonderfully. Curious if any species have evolved yet. Ah, there's one now. Ah, such a gorgeous little avian. I have a feeling it has a very simple mind, and if I offer it some berries... Ah, yes, now look at us, a couple of best pals, I'd say. Looks like I'm going to have some good company joining me on my little journey and quest. I must find and reunite with my people. No doubt every single one of them have already taken to the stars, so I am long behind them. I need to find a way off this world. I won't be going into this unarmed, though. Our little bird friend needs somebody who can protect them, and if he's evolved already, no doubt there's plenty of predators out there at the very least. There might even be some sentient life. But first, how about a name, little fellow? Ah, Barry. I like it, because, well, you like berries. Yes. Oh, also you're a lady. That's pretty cool. We would finally set off on our journey, heading to the south. We could see what appeared to be some type of town in the distance. Maybe sentient life is here after all. Ah, as we continued our journey, I could see the scars of terraforming on these lands. Our efforts may have uglied up the planet a bit, but it looks like it was all worth it. No doubt when we arrive to this little town, its species will almost definitely try to worship me, but after I explain that their entire existence here is due to me and my people, surely they'll be willing to give me a ship. I've decided to make direct contact with these lesser life forms. It would seem improper to communicate with them via radio waves or anything. We don't know how advanced they are anyhow. As I approached, they seemed to have some automatic toaster ovens that were quite angry and aggressive, throwing pieces of metal at me, but I paid them no mind. Greetings, humans. Hello, excuse, what the f*** are you doing? Well, perhaps some of you saw this coming, but the humans wouldn't worship me at all, and rather started attacking me, attempting to kill me for whatever reason. Fine then, you don't want to give up your ship voluntarily? I guess I'll just have to take it. Prepare your asses for a good spanking. Not to be the bearer of bad news, but these poor souls were only made in my image. They can't compare to the real deal, and neither can their weapons. It barely even put a scratch on my hardened skin. And their armor couldn't hold up against my weaponry of advanced firepower that melted them like chocolate in the hot summer sun. Oh, whoopsie daisy, almost missed one. There he is. Well, some good news and bad news. The good news is I killed all of the inhabitants here, and we can now claim this place for ourselves. But the bad news is there's no ship here. Not at all. My word, such primitive methods of generating power. No wonder there's no ship here. These beasts are barely even evolved. I'd be shocked if they've even put a man on the moon yet. There's no ship, but at least there was plenty of food, and hey, Barry really seems to enjoy it, and if she's happy, I'm happy. Regardless though, I still have a lot of work to do, like deconstructing this entire place to give us scraps of plasteel and uranium. Thanks to these metallic resources, along with the fact that I brought plenty of Arco fragments from home before I left, we had just enough to build us a workshop, one that I could use to create proper, more advanced weapons and armor for myself. Sure, I might be basically indestructible, but I am defending my sweet little Blue Jay companion too on this journey. I have to be ready. I'm going to be creating for myself a gigantic exosuit of armor to make me stronger, faster. That's about it. But don't I look good in it, mama? It's a shame I didn't have enough to build myself some power armor. I could really do some damage against our enemies then, but this'll have to suffice for now. Alright, Barry, it's time for you to start pulling your weight, little lass. We need to find a way off this planet. Any ideas? Son of a bitch, Barry. A ship to the stars isn't just gonna fall into our lap. Oh. Okay. Apparently it will. Apparently an AI from my past going by the name of Charlene Whitestone. Yes, of course. I remember you. Now just get me off this planet. Well, now we have a ship, but the issue is going to be getting there, as it's basically on the other side of the planet. A very far distance, even for an advanced race like myself to have to walk. As we were planning out our journey, the Outlanders ritualized light emitter they called a television told tale of an imperial government of the planet. Perhaps they'll be more sympathetic to my plight. Well, initial attempts to make contact went nowhere. They wouldn't even let me in the city. But I wasn't about to take a no for an answer. These rotten, no-good bastards mining out the mountains that I helped create and to put resources in? Well, on second thought, I suppose that was a bad idea on my part, but nevertheless, they are defacing this beautiful planet. Such primitive little creatures and their mining outpost. Although I do wonder if we could use this to our advantage. Since they're moving so many minerals, some of these shuttles could come in handy for us. We do have an awful lot of distance to cover after all. Ah, that's it, I'm taking one. But first we'll need to deal with the Imperials and their oversized toaster ovens. Thanks to my new exosuit, we should be able to clear them out in half the time. Oh, we are setting records today. A great, big, speedy bloodbath. Now don't get me wrong, I take no pleasure in the pitiful slaughter of these primates, but it must be done. I can't have them interfering with my escape from the planet. Besides, they refuse to stand aside, and thus, they must be trampled, I'm afraid. I tried to play nice, I really did, but they really wanted to do things the hard way, and, well, you can see what happened. We killed damn near every single one of them, except for a handful who ended up getting away from my wrath. How lucky for them that I'm on a mission to get out of here. Otherwise, I really wouldn't mind tracking them down and cutting their heads off. Especially because of this, a shelf built out of arco fragments. Seriously. To think that this is what they use our extraordinary technology for, shelves and batteries. At least it is back in proper hands. My hands, that is. Come on, Barry, the fighting's over. You're safe now, little buddy. Let's put you in the shuttle and let's get the hell out of here. We've got a date with Destiny, little lady. If Destiny is Charlene Whitestone or whatever her name is, the AI that I'm pretending to know so that, we can get the hell out of here. Speaking of which, we had just enough fuel in the shuttle's cargo bay to make it to our destination without issue. Wow, take it all in, Barry. Ain't she a beaut? Well, actually, it kind of looks like somebody welded together a bunch of soda cans, but as long as it works. This is it, sister. Our ticket off-world to join my people in the great beyond. Finally, let's do this. Oh yeah, I forgot. We have to wait for it to power up for 15 days. Fine, whatever. In the meantime, I'm going to start deconstructing some of these ancient buildings and also cutting down quite a few of these trees. That way we can build ourselves a teeny little shelter. What's that? For me? Oh, no. I'm such a superior species, I don't require a shelter. On the contrary, though, my little buddy Barry here needs a safe place to stay. That way she doesn't get eaten by predators, and also I can keep a good eye on her and ensure that no attackers end up murdering her, because I would lose my mind if that happened. Not to worry, though, for she has me to protect her, and her new little shack here has all the agave that she could ever want. She'll be fine and well fed. But I know what you're thinking, why aren't you building any defenses? You're gonna have to fend off a lot of tedious raids. At some points while the ship is powering up, you'll be taking on 2 to 3 to even 4 raids per day. How will you ever keep Barry the bird alive and the ship intact and keep it from getting destroyed by these ne'er-do-wells if you don't build a defense? Oh, you poor dumb animal. I am the defense. As you could see, things were going swimmingly, but with sheer numbers alone, the Neanderthals would come in from several different directions, and they, surprisingly, were the ones to actually get a few hits in on the ship, destroying a cryosleep casket. Nothing I'm really worried about. However, this did make me think that I need a weapon with a much longer range and perhaps even a bit more power to it to hit enemies from farther, so this doesn't happen anymore. This is the Devastator. One shot from this slug thrower should end any organic creature with ease, penetrating even the armors that my species could create. Needless to say, it's a bit overkill, but if for some reason things really go south, we have a terror pulsar, a special tool that will help us later, but just think if we pushed a button and then everybody in the area's minds were corrupted and caused them to flee. There you go. In the last final days between killing folks, I would also do some pretty major repairs to my armor. To my surprise, endless waves of enemies actually started putting a few scratches on it. That was about it, though. And then the final day would come, the last few hours before the ship finally powered up. But something told me that we were in store for quite the attack. And after the reactor was ready, it would seem that I was correct. All those Imperials that had been waiting in nearby areas for the reactor so they could try to snake it from us in the last final minutes. I've been expecting you. It seems they've even brought the leader of their entire clan, a Stellark, I believe as they're called. I suppose that this ship and reactor must be super duper important to you. Too damn bad. It's more important to me and my friend Barry. Speaking of which, Barry, get inside your cryopod. You don't want to see what Papa's about to do. Shit's about to get ugly, baby. That sure was fun. I'm gonna level with you though. I'm not sure if the terror pulsar scared them all away or the fact that I single-handedly killed half of their entire fighting force. You know what? At the end of the day, I don't think that it really matters. How about you, Imperials? Oh, what's the matter? Cat got you a tongue? No, actually, I think you're all mostly dead. A gigantic pile of corpses, except for some of you that are flailing around. It looks like my new weapon is quite efficient. We easily won the battle, of course, but the ship wasn't quite as lucky as we were, sustaining some pretty heavy damage. Now, the most important part, that being Barry's cryosleep casket, was still intact, thank God. Phew, if I had lost him, I probably would have had to have conquered the entire planet and enslaved the humans that live here and built my own empire dedicated to Barry the bird and building giant shrines out of gold and obsidian to him as I suppressed and oppressed the people. Thank God I don't have to do any of that now. However, before we can get this bad boy off the ground and take to the stars, it looks like we're going to need to build ourselves another sensor cluster as the one that was attached was destroyed. Just one little problem. Sensor clusters require quite a few resources. Now, many of these we already had because the Imperials had brought some with them, like advanced components, steel, normal components, everything except for gold. Wait a minute. I know where we could find some gold. The Stellark, God rest her soul, has a little bit on top her head. Well, don't mind if I do. It would seem that this attack from the Empire was not a roadblock. Well, it kinda was, but it was actually a bridge to get us back on track. After we smelt down her crown and build our sensors. There we go. Alright, without further ado, let's get the hell out of here. We have a much larger journey to embark on, for this is not the end, but simply a new beginning. See you later. Oh, hello there. The name is Lumi, and well, a few moments ago I read this really cool book. It made me feel all funny and empty inside, as if I were dead. Now, I have the ability to raise corpses from the dead to serve as my eternal slaves. That's right. I'm a necromancer. And today, with my special resurrection powers, you and I are going to be finding a way off this damn rock. Luckily, I've started with everything from the normal crash-landed scenario, which is apparently part of the necromancer scenario from the One with Death mod. Meaning, of course, I have guns, I have a knife, I have silver, wood, blah 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 blah, and of course, armor. A lot of armor. I realize I look a little bit silly, but, you know, it's better than getting turned into a corpse myself, I'd say. Since we currently have no way off of this planet, we are going to be staying here for quite some time, it would seem, and because of that, we obviously need a temporary shelter. Or perhaps a little bit more than temporary. I have a feeling we're going to be stuck here for several months before we're able to detect a ship, and so we're just going to fasten something together here at the mountain. Plenty of room to expand inside if and when need be. It ain't much, but it is a nice, warm, dilapidated cave. Kind of artificial cave? I don't know. I like it. But now for some rest and relaxation. At least we could sleep safely without the threat of a bear eating me. Or perhaps even some waster pirates coming and murdering and or enslaving me. I'd rather be bear shit, to be honest with you. The next day, I finally found our fallen monolith outside. Why was I looking for it, you might ask? Well, there's always at least a couple of corpses lying around it at any given time. Perhaps some type of cultist or worshippers. But corpses all the same. Corpses with some pretty good skill sets as well. Well, at least this one is. The other one, not so much. That works out in our favor, though, because currently we only have enough necrotic energy to go about resurrecting one of them, and the other one will get to consume for more energy. You see, necrotic energy is actually what we will be using to resurrect corpses into our undead slaves. If we don't have enough of it, we can't do it. To get more of it, we just have to consume dead things. The larger the dead thing, the more energy we get. Make sense? Alright. Rise, rise now, my undead beast. Your master command... Oh, hello. And as for the other one, you will now be a part of me forever and ever and ever. Bone bags are fun and all, but I prefer them with a little bit of skin. Hello, Mr. Piggy. Thankfully, I still have plenty of weapons, so he can have my plasteel knife. Not only will he be great at defending me and helping me defend our new home, but he's also going to be great at work, like all this mining that we need to do, as well as collecting a lot of wood for fire and building and berries for harvesting. But perhaps the best part of having these undead is that they don't eat, they don't sleep, nor even breathe for that matter. So basically what I'm getting at is they will work around the clock 24/7 without a single complaint. But isn't that a little overpowered, you say? Hell yes it is, and that's part of the fun. The only real drawback to this is the fact that the undead are incredibly slow at working, well, basically just everything. As you can see here, in comparison to us mining, our poor hog boy Curly is incredibly behind. Late into the night, though, we would end up having an outlander visitor. Hello there, little friend. Don't mind if I take a look at your stats? We could use somebody like you among our people. I accept. Now just hold still, darn it. There we go, finally. Well, he wasn't exactly the cooperative sort, but he is about to be part of the army of the damned. Lucky you, my friend. First, I would need to consume a turkey and a squirrel, but after that I had just enough energy to bring him back. Welcome aboard, my friend. You are now a part of something so much larger than yourself, getting me off this planet. And that's about it. Another little downside to resurrecting the dead is that this causes their hand-eye coordination to become next to nothing, meaning that their shooting skill could be amazing, but once they die and come back, it's absolutely trash. But that's the price that we pay. We're still going to be giving him a machine gun pistol because, well, it's the only real weapon that we have, and surely if he fires enough bullets, he's bound to hit something. Thanks to the help of our two brand new corpse compadres, we would turn this shabby mountain house into a shabby mountain home rather quickly. And you know what? By the time it was all said and done, I actually had a fairly nice bedroom. Stuff like this could almost make a girl want to stay. Almost. We still haven't detected a ship that's capable of getting us off this planet, so I think it's about time that we start planting some crops. If we're stuck here until winter, we're gonna need something to eat. And just in case there's not enough wildlife to hunt, rice would be absolutely perfect for filling up my tummy. Though I suppose we should give ourselves a name. What about, Death, Bringers, and Takers? Yeah, and we'll call this place Skull Canyon, totally not cheesy and cliche. Now, as I was going about day-to-day operations of planting rice and building and mining and things, I'm going to start having my undead go out during the nighttime and bring back animal corpses for me to consume. I'm sorry, do you feel that? It feels like raw power. Now that we have a decent place to live in for the time being, I think we need to do a bit of research. This isn't the damn Stone Age, okay? We need some batteries. We're generating electricity with a wood-fired generator, and yet we have nowhere to put all that excess power right now. I found myself preoccupied with my studies for several hours when we were rudely interrupted by our very first attack. Damn dirty waster pirates. I knew they'd come for me eventually. They always do. I will say, though, I'm quite grateful, as it only appears to be one singular pirate wielding a club. Give up, you sack of shit. You're outgunned and outmatched in more ways than one. Maybe if you surrender, then... Oh, well, that's one way to handle it. Kill you? Oh, my friend. You're about to face something much worse than normal death. We're talking death and eternal servitude, baby. Yeah, you better hold that silver, bitch boy. Ah, it feels good to be the queen of the damned. In such a short period of time, we've already gotten ourselves 3, yes, count 'em, 3 undead soldiers. Pretty incredible how fast you can move when you don't have to worry about, I don't know, feeding them and letting them sleep and anything at all, really. Even without my intellectual skill really being anything to brag about, thanks to our new friends handling every single activity and bit of work I needed to do, I was able to focus on researching, finishing batteries very quickly, and now being able to go straight into IEDs. Wait a minute, Rat, I hear you say. Why would you do that? What purpose could you have for these? Well, it's a secret tool that'll help us later. But let's focus on the now, and right now, our corpses are going out and killing more cute and crusty critters and basically just slaughtering all the wildlife in the area, bringing them back here to me. There's no doubt that in the very near future we're going to be encountering more humans who we will be able to kill and then resurrect. And when that time comes, I want to ensure that I have consumed enough dead things so that my necrotic energy is high enough to resurrect them. A little bit of time later and we had finally gotten all that rice grown and we're starting to harvest it. This was perfect timing, though, because we also finally detected a ship to the stars. The only little issue with this is that the ship is actually on the other side of the planet, and the journey to get there is going to be rather long. Thankfully, our soldiers will march on their rotten little stubby feet for as long as they need to without complaining. However, for myself, a bit of prep work is in order. Besides, I'd like to stick around for a while longer to finish up a bit more research, like the IEDs and ultimately biofuel refining. The idea here was that I was going to finish this, that way I could make my own IEDs. You'll come to find out, spoiler alert, later on I forgot to actually research mortars and thus so I could make shells. We'll get to that later. Right now, we need to stockpile food for our long journey. Remember a moment ago when I said it was perfect timing? We found the ship right after getting our first harvest of rice? Well, I wasn't kidding, because now all that rice will be perfect for our journey. Just as well as many wild berries that we could all fit in our pockets, which was actually quite a bit. As the undead were stockpiling all this food, I finished up some more research, and after a quick little consumption snack to the old necrotic energy of dead animals, I think that we are finally ready for our journey, wouldn't you say? Alright, you green sons of bitches, grab everything you can and let's head on out. And so we would, setting out on our long journey across the continent and thus the world shortly thereafter. Look, not to beat a dead horse, no pun intended actually, but it's pretty great not having to feed our corpses that are walking around and doing things for us, because if we did, we would have had to have prepped for probably another month or so trying to grow enough rice or gather up enough wild berries and meat to make this journey. So realistically, this is probably one of the fastest trips to the ship that I've ever had when beating RimWorld. It's pretty incredible, and I love this mod, by the way, if you couldn't tell. And if you're looking to play along with me, the mod list is in the video description. I just wanted to say that while I had time. Now, before we hit the ship itself, we're going to be stopping in at a tribal village to do a little bit of trading. I'd rather trade with the Outlanders, but unfortunately, one of our people, we killed him who was part of them. You remember, like 5 minutes ago. The reason I'd prefer to trade with the Outlanders is because I wanted a better weapon selection to purchase than some damn clubs and a few knives, but oh well. I would get to purchase some Juggernaut serum, which was nice. Just in case things really went south, I planned on using this serum to give myself a bit of a boost while the corpses fended off whatever was about to kill me. However, my friends, after a couple last final days of traveling, we would finally arrive. Isn't it beautiful? This grand chariot of steel, uranium, and spacer constructs is going to be our salvation off this world. Now, as our undead start hauling all of our things to a great big pile, while I took a dirt nap, no pun intended, again, it is clear to me that we need some form of proper shelter here. Not only for myself, but also for the ship as a whole to keep it protected at all times. Obviously, the easiest way to go about getting the materials to do this is by deconstructing some ancient ruins in the area, giving us different types of blocks, but of course also by mining out a great big deposit of steel, which we can then repurpose. How will you repurpose it, you might ask? Well, with a great big rectangle around the ship that we're going to be using as our home. Just in case you're unfamiliar with how the endgame of RimWorld works, at least the vanilla one, which is what we're doing right now, which I'm also a bit confused why you're watching this video, but welcome anyways, RimWorld's great. The ship takes about 14 days or so to actually start up, and during that time you will see many people detecting it, trying to come here to kill you so that they may take the ship for themselves, or just completely destroying it, of course. Attacks become much more frequent, and because you're in possession of a ship to the stars, they also become a lot harder as well. You'll see more members coming to kill you, stronger weapons being used to kill you, that sort of thing. Normally, you'll want to do a lot of prep work before trying to start the ship, which is kind of what we're doing right now, but as a necromancer, I think getting attacked is actually going to be a bit of a benefit to us. I think you know where I'm going with this, but if not, you'll see in just a moment. For right now, this was about the part where I completely forgot to research mortars, which will give us the ability to go about crafting our own shells, which are a requirement to build IEDs. Damn it. Well, we're gonna try to start the ship up anyways. IEDs were going to be my trump card, where I just put them all around the defenses that we've made and hope our enemies end up stepping on them and blowing up. Oopsie poopsie. However, there was some good news though. The ship is thankfully generating power, even before the initial startup of the reactor. Speaking of which, I think it's about time that we begin that. And as previously mentioned, after doing so, we now have 14 days to survive, defend ourselves and the ship before it's ready to take off into space. But it wouldn't be long at all before the first initial raid would happen. Damn dirty pigskin pirates were the first to detect the ship's signal and to act on it, dropping in a few drop pods nearby. Wasting absolutely no time, me and my undead forces would immediately begin engaging with him, knocking one gentleman out cold. The next two wouldn't be so lucky, as we quickly would swarm them, with the second one taking a rifle bullet straight through the back, blowing chunks of his right lung all over the sand. And the final piggy stood absolutely no chance against all four of us. My undead would beat him senseless until finally I arrived to put a stop to the abuse. But alas, little hog boy, you as well as your friends will now be joining us in death rather than in life. or whatever this pale imitation of life I'm capable of conjuring should be called, I suppose. The new dead that we've added onto our army were absolutely perfect for building more traps, as well as collecting more resources, which I suppose only makes sense because we had 3 undead before, we have 6 now, so we have literally doubled our forces. But it would seem that we're about to increase them even more, as more pig pirates have come to try to reinforce their friends. Little do they know. Since the pirates had planned on sieging us this time around, we would have to act rather quickly. The longer we waited, the higher the chance they would get a mortar shell fired at us, hitting us, or even worse, hitting the ship. I would send all of our corpses to do the fighting for me this time around, not only because, well, I don't want to die, because if I die, this is all pointless, and also all the corpses will die too, because my magic is gone. But I also stayed back in case something were to happen, that way I could put out a fire at the ship or something like that. Not that they really needed my help, they were doing fairly well on their own. Again, they have no shooting skills, so they're not all that great of a shot, but on the plus side they can't feel pain. Given enough time, they had actually managed to defeat these seizures, causing them to run away in fear. But I highly doubt this is the last we'll see of them. Ah, the fresh smell of bacon in the air. I'm afraid I can't let you all burn, though, as I need your bodies to fight in my army. I think you can see why earlier I said these raids might actually be beneficial to us, instead of how they're normally colony ruining and we end up dead. We are just adding more and more soldiers into our forces. And the best part is, if any of them die, as long as they still have their bodies, we can just resurrect them again. And if they don't die and they're very injured, like our friend Porky here, they'll go into an undeath sleep, which is basically their way of completely regenerating. So after several hours, they'll be good to go again. I told you necromancy was overpowered. You probably didn't believe me, did you? This particular raid was quite useful because since we stopped the siege before it really got started, that means that we have these incinerary shells as well as high explosive shells. The things that, if you remember earlier, we couldn't build because I didn't do the proper research. I guess we'll get to build those IEDs after all, eh? Perhaps one of the most interesting ones was an anti-grain warhead. I was debating on whether or not to go ahead and research mortars so we could fire this at enemies or to use it for a trap. I think an IED will be good, but only for a special occasion. After a few days, though, we were right in the grips of winter, and I was beginning to get rather cold. So cold, in fact, that I was hypothermic. Frostbite was about to take my fingers and my toes. Growing cotton to make our own coat would be a good option, but I'm rather lazy, and we don't currently have any friends to purchase a nice coat from. Luckily, one of our corpses just so happened to have a parka. Many of them do, and they're tainted, which sucks to wear for our mood, but oh well. Oh, the chilling winds and flurries of winter have come, and we must endure their icy chill. At least until the ship is ready, that is. During this time, we scrounged for food, stayed warm by our heaters, and we also began prepping fuel to possibly sell to people in exchange for food if we begin to run out. We should be fine, but it's always best to have contingency plans. We were also building some of those traps that we discussed earlier. Ironically, I wanted to build these traps initially because I thought that they might be the best way for us to defend ourselves, but I had completely underestimated the power of undead soldiers and the fact that they can't feel any pain at all. I actually found myself during these so many days here as the ship was powering up, sending our forces directly head-on at enemies, constantly killing them, occasionally getting killed in the process, but mostly being revived as well. We were taking the weapons and armor of our enemies if and when we could, that is. And most importantly, we were also resurrecting them all to come back and to fight for us and to help us defend this ship. At this point, the only way for me to describe it was like our enemies were throwing grease on top of a fire. Sure, if you throw enough of it on there, maybe it'll get smothered out for a hot second, but eventually it would reignite. larger and larger. And that's exactly what was happening every time they sent their sons and daughters into the meat grinder that was this place. And eventually we had nothing but a solid wall of rotten flesh here to defend us and our vessel. Units of unfeeling and unyielding badassery. And they're all mine to command. We were really beginning to push the limits of our necromantic powers, for you see, without expanding my capacity, which I would have to get my necrotic energy up to 100% to do so, and then completely use it all to do that, we can only have up to 25 undead. Which is more than enough, though, because we are in the final hours of the reactor of the ship finally powering up. We are about to leave this planet behind for good. Looks like it's ready, but you know me. I always like to do things where I go out with a bang. I can't just power up a ship and leave for God's sake. No, I don't think the factions of this planet would let that happen. They are dying to get their hands on this ship. No, I think that they would probably attack us with the largest force that we have ever seen. Now that army is one that could easily defeat our own. Thankfully for me, I don't plan on taking any of my undead babies into space with me. I mean, they were trying to kill me at one point. This is the ultimate punishment for them. There's only enough room in this cryo-sleep casket for me, I'm afraid. I'll see you later, losers. Ah, Curly, our firstborn, with an anti-grain warhead trap. Perfect timing, old friend. Now this is going out with a bang. R.I.P. little fellas and fellerets. R.I.P. indeed. Hello there, thank God you made it just in time. The name is Captain Barn, and I and my crew here recently crash-landed on the planet. Our pilot Igor here is still a bit wet behind the ears. So, at the moment we're currently stuck on this floating rock, but we're looking for a way off ASAP. Thankfully, we were already on our way to this planet, which is a Gungan colony. It's incredibly far from Naboo, but not that we really mind, as at least we're surrounded by friends. For the most part, it would appear that the Separatists are here as well, possibly in secret underground bases maybe, or even factories disguised in the mountains. Only time will tell, but it would be nice if we could get off the planet before the filthy clankers start coming for us. Thankfully for us, it would appear this planet has vibrant amounts of vegetation that we can use to build a few structures. This will be much better than setting up a few tents. Though, obviously, wooden huts aren't exactly the most stable structure. It's better than nothing. And since the Gungan normally build their homes in more aquatic areas, I don't really think they'll mind much of us having a teeny tiny little makeshift camp here. After we finished throwing together our huts, we were quite peckish. Luckily, this planet also appears to have some edible foliage as well. They were actually pretty delicious and sure as shit beat the nutrient paste and protein bars we're used to eating. Now then, brothers, with our bellies full and our heads clear, it's time for us to come together with a plan to get back to the Republic. The most obvious course of action is obviously going to be to restore our shuttle, though I don't think we'll be able to use all the parts and whatnot that we currently have on it, so we might just want to try to refurbish it into something a little bit different. It hardly matters right now though, as we need a lot of resources to do so we'll get back to that in a moment, but I think that'll be our end goal. As for right now though, we need to focus on other priorities like staying alive, ensuring we have enough food to eat so that we don't starve before we can leave, as well well as prepping for the arrival of many a clanker, I'm sure. These mountains appear to be rich with different types of ore and compacted machinery, so we immediately started mining out these veins for their glorious resources, then allowing us to form some power generation methods like a wood-fired generator. This seemed like the best option since the sun goes down at one point on this planet and solar power isn't exactly ideal, while we could just keep burning wood all throughout the night. We would also set up many useful production areas for ourselves, like an outdoor kitchen where we could collect all of these berries that we've been eating and cook them into proper meals, which, let me tell you, taste so much better. Not only did it taste better, but it would give us plenty of energy to continue our righteous mission. With full tummies, we could start deconstructing some of the ruins in this area. A bit odd, it seems that this planet most likely had some type of civilization on it before that had some decent technology. Perhaps the Gungan have collected some of this and might be willing to trade it with us. It could be useful for our shuttle, of course. Speaking of which, it would seem that the Gungan Union had sent over something of a diplomat to make contact with us. Upon realizing that we are with the Republic, obviously everyone was all smiles and, we just kinda chatted because, well, we didn't have anything to trade. A few days later, and we would start using a lot of the stone and other resources that we had collected from the ancient ruins of a past civilization to start protecting ourselves with a proper wall. We also used some of the wood to start building some basic and simple traps. I highly doubt these are going to kill any droids, but they might be able to damage them a bit and crack the steel they're made of. Some of the remaining stone that we had, we decided to build ourselves some stone flooring in our hut. Since it seems like we're going to be here for quite a while before we can leave, we at least want the place to look good. But a little bit of time later, and it would seem that the Separatists have finally located our position and sent a party of demolition droids to try to kill us. A couple of them have blasters, but the other two seem to only have grenades, so if we keep our distance, we should be okay. As they approached the base for inspection, we hid near some rocks in the area to jump out and start firing at them, but as they started closing in, we decided to run in behind our walls. This was the safest course of action, and as they began coming in, they would end up hitting one of our spike traps, and that's about it. So we had to kind of start rushing around the area here. Luckily, they're pretty easy to outmaneuver, and like I said, as long as we kept our distance, everything was a-okay. By the end of the fighting, though, myself and my men had taken a bit of damage. Luckily, though, I think we'll be fine, and we now have 4 dead clankers in our midst. They'll be absolutely perfect to deconstruct and use their resources to help with our shuttle. But we're going to need to set up a much better base with a proper storage area as well as a machining table, which was the next item on our list to build. Now that we've completed this, we can start deconstructing these bastards. We'll mostly only be able to salvage steel from them, but occasionally we will also get plasteel from finishing them off, which both are required for the shuttle itself, as well as a few other items like components, advanced components, and uranium, 2 of which we are hoping and praying the Gungan might have some of that we can trade for. Eventually, as the days passed, we continued deconstructing other structures in the area and collecting the refurbished resources from them to use for another wall on the western side of this little valley here, which we've decided to settle in for the time being. The idea is to try to funnel any of the clankers that are on foot through this area here where they'll hit our traps and we can spring out and begin firing at them, of course. That's assuming and also hoping that they don't drop in right on top of our heads. As we were constructing our defenses, we had an army sergeant by the name of Nelson offering to join us here, completely free of charge. At the very least, we decided to speak with the gentleman. Well, he's no Gungan, there is always the possibility that he's a Separatist spy, but we'll take his word for it for now. It seems like he's crash-landed here as well, Here's hoping he doesn't betray us and shoot us in the back of the head, I suppose. We'll keep a close eye on him regardless. Since we're not exactly sure on where his loyalties lie, we decided to build him his own little hut. That way he's not sleeping next to one of us, where he could easily take us out in the middle of the night. We would, however, discover a way for him to quickly prove his loyalty to us, though, as there was a weather controller in the area, no doubt set up by the separatists to try to drive us away and or to try to mess with our perception so they could come in and kill us. We would waste absolutely zero time heading out east to confront them and to destroy this damn dirty weather controller. Upon our arrival, it appeared to be a relatively undefended structure, though there were many a clanker in the area. It is only a simple little building with no automated defenses, other than the droids, of course. Alright, Nelson, time for you to prove that you are a true ally of the Republic. The droids would give us basically no time to prepare. We immediately had to take cover behind some ancient wreckage to begin firing at them from over top it. They had us pinned down for a good bit of time there, but thanks to our superior intelligence and battle prowess, we would end up taking out many of them. Now we can begin pushing toward the weather controller, where only a couple more droids had remained. After finishing off their forces, it was time to finish this battle once and for all. Funny enough, after destroying the controller, we would actually get some steel, plasteel, and components. This will go into our rebuilding the shuttle fund. Since we're already out on the road, we also decided to head to a nearby Gungan base where we could see what they actually have to trade. This will really determine whether or not we can even leave anytime soon. Thankfully, it does appear that they've managed to salvage some advanced components as well as uranium. The only problem, though, is we have nothing to trade for it, and we can't afford it. But we should be able to purchase it and or trade for it later on. As we were heading back to base, we had been ambushed just outside of our territory that we've claimed by a super heavy battle droid. Only one, though. Since it is very large and sluggish, it wouldn't take us long at all to blast it into oblivion, and then finally finish it off once and for all. Time for us to head back home. Upon our arrival about a day or so later, we ended up starting a small field of our own food. We don't know that much about this planet, and anything could happen, such as a volcanic winter. It could be right around the corner, and we could end up having all the wildlife and vegetation in the area dying, causing us to starve. And we would really prefer if that didn't happen, or that if it did, we had plenty of rice in storage that we could live on for a while. Some time later, though, and we had a Gungan bulk goods trader, which was absolutely perfect because them coming to our base here means that we can sell all the plain leather that we hadn't packed off to their base previously, making us a pretty little penny. We would still need a good bit more money to go about purchasing all the resources that we needed, but luckily we had detected a vein of plasteel in the northwestern quadrant of this territory. Wasting absolutely no time, me and my men went there and began mining it out. Now, much of this plasteel was going to be used on our shuttle, but that was only 100 plasteel. Thankfully, we had quite a bit left over that we could sell and or trade. My men would take and pack their pockets and packs full of the plasteel over to the nearby Gungan base and begin selling it and or trading it for plenty of advanced components. Actually, just one, it was all that we needed, but about 80 or so uranium. And because plasteel is worth so much, we still had plenty left over to trade off for a bit of juggernaut serum. Something tells me that we're going to need it. Meanwhile, as we were doing this trading for these crucial resources back home, Nelson was building a biofuel refinery where he would be able to refine many of the organics in the area, such as all the wood that we had already cut down, into chem fuel to power our refurbished shuttle. Once we had finally returned back home with all the uranium and the advanced component, it was finally time for us to finish off our refurbishing, and we now have our shuttle back at full capacity. Well, sorta. Unfortunately, the current crew capacity is only 2, so we need to start upgrading it with some proper crew cabins. That way we could fit all of our men, as well as Nelson, of course. This wasn't too big of a deal. It was pretty easy to accomplish. We just needed a good bit of steel. With the capacity finally upgraded and we could fit all our crew in, and the shuttle fully fueled, the only thing we really needed to do now was to work work on the cargo capacity and also harvest all of our rice and get all of our things loaded up. For you see, we're not taking the shuttle into space to try to get back to the Republic. We would run out of fuel well before we made it anywhere near any capital ships or anything like that. No, there is actually a landed ship on the planet, and we're simply going to be taking the shuttle over there and hope that we could commandeer this vessel to take us into the stars back home. Not to worry, there are no real spacefaring civilizations on this planet, of course, that we would be stealing it from, at least, so it only belongs to an AI, meaning it really belongs to no one, right? Now, with everything loaded, it was time for us to head in that direction. We would have to make many a stop on the way there to refuel, but eventually we would end up arriving. And indeed, as we had thought, this vessel is completely unmanned and is nothing more than an AI with, a ship. Either way, though, it was time for us to start this vessel so we could get the hell out of here. But, of course, as always, this process takes up to 15 days for it to get the energy necessary to take off to get out of here. And during that time, it is going to send a signal across the planet that all will be able to detect, including the Separatists. Basically, we're going to have quite a few fights on our hands, so we should go ahead and start preparing by cutting down trees and readying some defenses as well as a camp for ourselves. Now, I'm going to do my absolute best to try to compartmentalize or summarize the next 15 days or so, as it's going to be pretty boring if I show you every single little fight that we're experiencing, especially against smaller groups of separatist clankers. So, to begin, the very next morning, we already had some very small sabotage droids that were coming right for us. Now, luckily, they had no ranged capabilities, so it was actually quite easy for us to disperse of this large group of them with our superior ranged blasters, of course. And after blasting this scourge into oblivion, of course, we could collect all of their metallic corpses to prepare to be deconstructed for any and all resources that they may have. We might have already refurbished the shuttle, but stealing components are always handy. After that, we would pull out an old tried and true tactic of deconstructing ancient ruins to build ourselves some structures. In this particular case, we're actually going to be building some walls around the ship itself. This is our end game, quite literally. If this ship loses its crucial components like its reactor or AI, we're not getting off this planet anytime soon, and that is no bueno. And this wall was much needed because we constantly were getting attacked by the clankers, as you could have guessed. Obviously, this time around we ended up having some super heavy battle droid with a handful of Commander B1 droids. These were honestly some of the most difficult raids that we were getting, because before this it was nothing but demolition and sabotage droids, which honestly were not that much of a challenge, although I suppose the Separatists are attempting to crank it up a bit. And oh boy did they. Even though we attempted to keep our distance as best we could, the super heavy battle droids were incredibly dangerous, and their blasts were like a train hitting you in the chest. Igor and Nelson had fallen, and eventually it was just me standing at the end. Thankfully, with my pistol, I managed to kill the last remaining super heavy battle droid, but we almost lost right then and there. Nelson was in pretty bad shape, so I immediately started tending to him. Luckily for my brothers, the worst of it was simply a few burns to their skin. Thanks to our superior armor, we didn't really have to worry about bleeding out, unless we got pounded into the dirt by a super heavy fist. Which, of course, mind you, does happen on occasion. Days and days and days would go by, and we would continue improving our camp, building ourselves some little huts again, and also an outdoor kitchen once more, as well as growing some crops. But most importantly, we were really finishing up the wall and trying to basically encompass the entire ship, as well as, I guess, what is now our base within it. That way we could protect it as well as ourselves to the best of our ability. All the while surviving off rice and berries and squirrels, and getting into quite a few shootouts with the filthy droids. But we were struggling quite a bit bit without proper barricades and traps, which really should have been one of the first things that we ended up building. That's okay, we can work on them now. Besides, it won't be long at all now before the ship's reactor is finally fully powered up and ready to take us into the stars. We only need our defenses to last for a little bit longer. Assuming we can manage to continue surviving. One raid we ended up having was B1 and Super Heavy, but they also had a few droideka along with them. Not that this was too big of a deal, but unfortunately during this time, Nelson was in the middle of a mental break, meaning he can't fight for himself. And he was standing right at the entrance of the base where all of our enemies were coming. At the moment, they appear to be a little bit distracted with beating up our barricades, so that might give us a time to jump out behind them and start shooting them, but even this wouldn't exactly work, and we would have to rush back in. They had made it past our defenses, and we had to take cover in some nearby rocks, firing at them when we could. They would end up making their way to the center of our base, attacking our huts, which we didn't mind, but they were also getting a little too close for comfort to our ship. Thankfully though, since they were doing this, they had their backs turned to us, and we could sneak in and start shooting them from behind, finally finishing them off before they could do any real damage, at least damage that we couldn't repair, that is. A little bit of stick welding to the ship's engines and it should be good as new. Once again during this conflict, Nelson had taken a few bonks on the old noggin, but he had truly proven himself once again. It would seem that he is indeed our ally. He proved it long ago, but you know, we're very much comfortable with him now and willing to take him back to the Republic with us. With all the materials we were getting from tearing apart these droids, we would actually end up giving our shuttle yet another upgrade, a grenade launcher. We plan on filling it full of EMP grenades, which should be perfect for taking out our mechanical nemesis. During one such raid, we ended up having assassin droids dropping in right on top of our base, and we decided to attempt to use this grenade launcher, but our shuttle was getting pounded with blasters and grenades so quickly that we had to have Nelson fly off in it. It was quite literally the only way that we could save our shuttle. My men and myself would attempt to take these bastards on head on, but unfortunately I was downed, and then it would seem that we have lost our brave captain to a grenade explosion, but we had little time to focus on that because even in his death, the battle rages. What remained of our enemies would be quickly and easily finished off by Robbie, who snuck up behind them in the wreckage. Once what remained was finally cleared out, Robbie could begin tending to the wounds of Igor, and we could bring Nelson back in the shuttle, which exploded upon impact, causing a great big fire. With all these injuries and attempting to firefight everything going on at once, I found that the only solution here was to put Igor in one of the cryo-sleep caskets. The advanced medical services of the Republic will be able to better tend to him anyhow. We would also have Nelson enter another of these caskets for similar reasons, and also because he doesn't have any proper armor, making him quite the liability. With only 7 hours remaining before the reactor finally powers up so we can leave, it looks like Robbie's going to be holding down the fort all on his own. Looks like it's just me and you, Captain. I could only think that you would give some type of inspirational, motivating speech right about now, but it's just going to rain, looks like. With an absolutely gargantuan raid of B1 battle droids and their commanders landing just outside our base, I think it's now or never. Whatever it takes, we are going to ensure that this ship is able to take off in a couple of hours. We will make sure that Nelson and our brother get home safely. Thankfully, we do have some Juggernaut serum left over from our many waves of enemies. Dual-wielding these blaster rifles, high out of my mind on Juggernaut serum. I am going to hold the door. I am going to protect this ship. The seemingly endless hordes of battle droids coming for us like a mechanical tsunami engulfing our square little base. I was terrified out of my mind and I could feel my heart beating out of my chest, but I would not falter. As they began surrounding me, I was being flanked by all sides. Blaster fire hitting me. It felt like my entire body was on fire. I would have to reluctantly retreat just temporarily, now taking cover behind some rocks, trying to peek out whenever I could to fire at this unwavering fleet of enemies. As the rain continued pouring down, it would seem that the ship is almost ready. Just need to hold out a little bit longer. Today I make my last stand, and I protect my brother. Uh-oh. Well, that's not good. Oh, thank God, the reactor literally just powered up. Alright, let's get out of here. Hello? Surely you don't need me to explain who I am, right? You clicked on this video for a reason. Rip and tear, baby. I will explain to you, however, that this world has went to absolute hell and a handbasket, and I'm not exaggerating either. We need to get the hell out of here. Alright, enough jokes. Locating the ship to get off this world is going to be rather easy, I'd say, with the hardest part being fighting off demonic foes. Thankfully, the only sentient species on the planet other than myself are these demonic forces, and that's damn good news. Why is that damn good news? That means I don't have to hold back. Alright then, let's get started. First things first, I'm gonna start deconstructing some of these ancient structures in this hellish place, that way I can build myself a shelter. I need a place I can hide out for a while until we're able to detect the ship on the planet so we can get the hell out of here. The only thing is, we got about 2 days before the undead start showing up looking to rip and tear us apart. I don't think there'll be much of an issue, but it's worth mentioning just in case they start tearing apart my structure and I have to get the hell out of here. Nothing too fancy, a man like myself only needs 4 walls, a bit of bricks for the floor, and a nice bed. You know what? Scratch that. It ain't even gotta be nice. I'm basically laying on cinder blocks with a little blankie. I threw together a table and a little stool to eat my meals at, and then I whipped myself up a fire so that I could cook myself some meals. That's right, even the Slayer gets a little bit hungry from time to time. I won't need to hunt my meals though, as there's some roadkill laying out, either killed by demonic forces or infection. Or something. I don't know, but I'm hungry. Brought them back to camp and started cutting them up with a sharp knife. I would have used the crucible, but it was a little bit too large, and I prefer the meat not to be seared by it. Oh, now we're talking a nice fried rat with a little bit of lizard parfait. Now I might be eating good, but these meals aren't just for me. No. I also plan on using some of the food around here to maybe tame myself a nice new friend. A bunny rabbit, perhaps. Uh-oh, hold that thought, because it looks like we're gonna have to turn some zombies into a puddle on the ground real quick. From the ground they came, crawling out like monstrous beasts that they were, and straight back into the abyss I sent them. I turned them into mincemeat rather quick and easy like. I've been killing larger and tougher foes than them since before you were out of Pampers, buddy. And even after that, I knocked the blood off my armor and went to bed with a smile on my face. Of course, with my eyes wide open. You never know when someone might sneak up on you. The next day, I picked some agave fruit and started offering it to one of the local bunny rabbits. And you know what? She became my best friend. Oh, so soft and fuzzy. Finally, someone to nuzzle me and snuggle me while I sleep at night, waiting to detect that damn ship so I can get me and my new friend the hell out of here. I brought her back to my base, that way she'll be safe and sound, away from any demons or zombies. And I ended up naming her, yes, you guessed it, Daisy. Aww. My new friend until the very end. We like to partake in activities like eating local roadkill, as well as sleeping and waiting on the ship like I mentioned a moment ago. That's about it. Not much to do around here. Uh-oh. Don't worry, Daisy. Daddy'll handle this. Finally, some real competition to beat and bash into a fine mush onto the ground. Cosmic demonic horrors beyond human comprehension. Yeah, okay, well I have a shotgun. Let's see how that worked out for you, huh? Not so well, I think. And here I was thinking that you might give me a run for my money. How silly of me. This does mean, however, that the demons are aware of my location. And that is going to be a bit of a problem. Because that means if they know where I'm at, they know where Daisy's at. Maybe we should clear them out first. They have 3 main bases here on the planet, 3 different Imperial bases that were taken when those idiots opened up portals straight to hell. But that also means we only have 3 places to clear out. Well, Daisy, looks like we have some work to do before we leave this planet. Lock and load, baby. We'll head to the first base, which is the closest one to us. Because, well, obviously, right? Just as we had surmised, the place was absolutely crawling with disgusting, monstrous demons, many of which used to be human, it would seem. Some of the old Empire's Marines corrupted and turned into whatever they are. Well, something tells me that they're not gonna eat this buckshot on their own, so I suppose we'd better get in there and make them. These corrupted Marines were unlike the others that we had faced, and by that I mean that they actually had shields. So I thought it might be better if I lopped off their heads with the old crucible. I'm sure it comes as no surprise, but that seemed to do the trick rather easily, and after a while we had managed to slaughter every single one of them. The portals to hell in these bases have already been closed, but that doesn't mean we don't need to destroy the hives that these bastards are living in. We don't need their parasites taking over any more unlucky humans who end up stumbling upon it if they're surviving out in the hellish woods or something. Look, I don't even know if there are other humans out there. It's just me and Daisy as far as I'm aware. As we continued on to the next base, I noticed that the smoke was clearing and the ash in the sky was starting to dissipate, even if ever so slightly. Really, I only bring that up because that means it's going to be a lot easier to see these freaks when we blow their heads off. Speaking of which, the demons at this place were a lot larger and stronger than anticipated, especially in comparison to the last base we fought. I was thinking it might be nice to have something a lot larger than a shotgun in the crucible to take them on. Maybe something like a BFG, but unfortunately I don't have one. I would have to try to face them head-on with the crucible, but after hours of fistfighting with them and slicing many in half, they got the better of me. Damn, I was beaten to a bloody pulp. This normally doesn't happen. Matter of fact, I don't think it's ever happened. I'll be fine once my body heals up a bit, but unfortunately I can't move. And Daisy is being chased by them. Those fucking monsters chased down my poor pet bunny rabbit and slaughtered her. Daisy, my poor, poor bunny. I will have my revenge. I will eradicate every demon from this planet. After a couple of hours, my body had finally healed enough that I could move again. I rushed to grab my sword and my shotgun, and I am getting the hell out of here. I need time to recoup. I can't avenge anybody if I'm broken and disheveled like this. As the demons would chase me, I fired back, rushing out of the area, and eventually I would make my grand escape. Technically, their base was destroyed, so this was a victory, but I lost my best friend, so it was a complete failure. I set up camp a few miles down the road. I needed time so that I could try to heal from my wounds, and that way I could also take some time to maybe plan out a strategy to attack the next base. As I was doing this though, I would finally detect the ship that could get us off this planet. Thankfully, it wasn't too far from me. That's the good news. The bad news? It's at a small outpost that is completely being ripped and torn apart by demonic forces. If I don't hurry, the ship will be next, no doubt. The demons that are here are large and quite strong. However, there are not all that many of them. I think we should be able to handle them rather easily, even without the majority of my armor. If we could manage to get aboard the ship, we could probably turn the weapons on, but it looks like that turret is completely out of ammunition. Looks like I'm gonna have to handle this one all by my lonesome with the shotty. And also just a helmet. I'm completely naked. I didn't waste any time. I ran headfirst straight into the fire. No pun intended. These sons of bitches killed my pet and now they're gonna feel the wrath. I swapped over to slugs instead of buckshot because I wanted them to feel the gaping holes that we were blowing in them. I made sure that every shot and every swing and slice of the crucible was as excruciatingly painful as possible. Looks like my job here is done. Finally time to take the ship for myself. Or so I thought. On the inside were 3 corrupted Marines taking cover and opening fire on me. So, naturally, I would do the same. But because of their hellish shields, my slugs were bouncing right off. Looks like I'll need to get up close and personal to finish this little fight. You smell that? Smells like victory. As well as burning demon hide. A lot of the Imperial crew that they had killed started turning into zombies. Thankfully, I think the heat ended up killing them, but no doubt there'll be more very soon. Probably for the best if we go ahead and take off, I'd say. Huh. My, look what we have here. A BFG 9000. Could have used this a few days ago, but better late than never, I suppose. I believe this is gonna come in mighty handy for where we're going. Speaking of which, let's get the hell out of here, shall we? It'll be a lot easier to plan our attack on the final demonic base once we don't have to worry about any more demons attacking the ship. There we are, now that is much better, sitting in a low orbit well away from any of our enemies. As long as they don't somehow teleport aboard, we should be fine. We gotta do something about me not having armor though. I wonder if I could... This cryo-sleep casket isn't vacant. Let's crack it open. An Imperial Marine. Poor bastard's infected. Best I go ahead and put you out of your misery. There's no saving you now, I'm afraid. Well, marine armor isn't exactly on par with my own, but it's better than nothing, I suppose. Red isn't exactly my color either, but I guess it's less cleanup when I get blood all over it. You'll barely even notice. Thankfully, that fella seemed to have some uranium in his pockets that he took into the pod with him. How kind. I suppose I could use this as well to rearm the ship's defense system. And we'll chuck some of these corpses out the airlock. Don't want that zombie virus getting to them and causing them to spring back to life. Especially not while I'm piloting the ship trying to get back down to the last remaining demon base. Speaking of which, I suppose we should go ahead and make our departure. I'm ready to start slaughtering these sons of bitches once more. I know what you might be thinking. Couldn't you just beat the game right now and leave in the ship? You've already got everything you need. Yes, I could technically do that, but I still need my revenge. The last remaining base was in complete shambles with very little structure, mostly just great big open fields in between some hellish lava fields and mountains. Absolutely perfect. That means I'll have a clear line of sight. The forces here were similar in size to the second base, the same one where my sweet Daisy was murdered in cold blood. They had many different types of warriors, one of which appeared to be their leader. Perhaps a Hell General? I'm not exactly sure, but it hardly matters because none of them will be making it out of here alive. They may outnumber me 100 to 1, but I didn't come alone this time. I brought the ship and its unrelenting turret. Let's give them hell. A bit anticlimactic, I'll admit, but it did get their attention. Now it's time for me to join the fray, along with my new weapon. As the name would suggest, the BFG 9000 was a big-ass gun, and it was a badass gun, easily killing and obliterating, even disintegrating demons within 1 to 2 of its mighty blasts. I was actually pretty surprised to see how resilient some of the larger demonic forces were against it. But after I killed them off, it was mostly just the infected Marines who, after getting sliced in half by the Crucible, as per usual, yes, you guessed it, they died, and eventually, we won. I think it helped out quite a bit in this battle that the ship's defensive systems were keeping their attention off of me sometimes. Nevertheless, a win's a win. Do I feel better? Maybe a little bit, but my poor bunny rabbit is still dead at the hands of these monsters. And there's no bringing her back. Even if I killed trillions upon trillions of these freaks, I don't think it would ever patch the hole that has been left in my heart. Another bunny rabbit. Well, there might be something that could put a bandage over the metaphorical gaping bloody hole in my organ. A new pet bunny. Using some agave fruit, I made myself yet another friend. A soft and warm, fuzzy companion to keep me company. I'm aware that you'll never be Daisy, little furry friend. But you could be Daisy 2.0, and that's almost as good. Consider it the greatest honor of your mammal life to be named after the greatest bunny ever. You will be second greatest, not to worry. Since Daisy 2.0 and I are going to be traveling in the ship for quite some time, I want to ensure that we are both comfortable. I gathered up some wood and made her a nice little box to lie in with some straw. Home sweet home, girl. At least for now, until we get back to Earth. Do you want to make any pit stops on our way back there, or... Oh, well, you're asleep. Perhaps I'll check back in with you later, I suppose. All right, let's get the hell out of here. Fear ye not, Earthlings. We're on our way. Yet another beautiful RimWorld colony with our crash-landed crew. Oh, looks like they all died on impact. Well, that's never happened before. Gotta be hard to start a colony with these mutilated corpses laying around. Well, that sucks. Colony ended before it even got started. Game over. Oh, wait a minute. I could just play as the dog. That's right, all you mutts and pups. We are going to be beating RimWorld today as a Labrador Retriever. Or, for a shorter and more simple title that'll hopefully have caught your eye, as a dog. I can already hear you in the comments. How the hell are you gonna do that, Rat Papa? Well, I'm not exactly sure, but I do have some mods, which you can find in the video description, that allow me to control check, not only to draft him, but the WASD mod allows me to actually control him as well. Perfect for things like, oh, I don't know, hunting down squirrels to eat. I'm gonna level with you. You know just as well as I know that the last thing that I'm good at is planning, okay? So I kinda just jumped into this head first with a concept and just tried to make it work as best I could. First example of this was me hunting that squirrel, but Check wouldn't even eat it. He'd much rather go and eat survival meals. I fucked it up already, looks like. I guess it really doesn't matter as long as our belly is full and we could just lie out here on the ground. It's not like anybody's gonna care. We are an animal after all. Let's just hope a larger predator doesn't come along in the night. Now, I will say that I would just let days pass in the beginning here, and, you know, we could say that our Check, which is also me, of course, was just saddened by the death of his 3 owners, so much so that he didn't want to leave the area. But in reality, I was just trying to let some time pass. That way we could eventually get the quest for the ship to the stars. Yeah, you know, the thing that we need to actually beat the game. And to avoid any predators, I just kind of hung out around the river here, around where we initially crashed, and also around my survival meals. That way, you know, I could just eat and survive and not have to worry about anything. Listen, I never said this would be spectacular, okay? After a while, though, I did notice that my previous owners had completely rotted away. The poor damn dirty saps. And I also noticed there were a lot of crows around them. I didn't mind if they pecked on their bones, but damn it, you better stop eating my meals. Well, they didn't, needless to say, so no more Mr. Nice Pooch. I started biting the heads off of crows left and right, and I ended up killing a whole damn murder, or flock, or whatever it's called of them. After doing so, I realized what a dumbass idea that was, because here's the thing, there's no humans around, no one's here to heal me, and because of that, I have to let my body do its own thing. Right? Nature takes its course and I eventually get healed. But another part of nature is infections, and if I were to get one, there's a strong chance I won't survive it. So no more needless violence. Thankfully no infections this time, and I healed up, and we finally got our quest for the ship to the stars. Now we can get the hell off this rock. I will say, it was a bit farther from us than I would have liked. I think it was about 20 days travel or something like that, so my plan was going to be to take as many packaged survival meals as I could, and I would stop, make camp, and hunt along the way. Just one problem. I wanted to take those packaged survival meals because we had 22 of them, which would be great, but even trying to put one on me was way too much weight for my body to handle for some reason. Not really sure how that works. That's alright though, right? To hell with it, who even cares? We could just hunt squirrels and stuff on the way down there. That's what I thought too. Turns out there's more than just one issue. I can't even send the caravan without any people. I know what you're thinking, Rat Daddy, I know it might be cheating, but who gives a shit? Turn on dev mode and send that puppy out instantly, and let's get this train rolling again. Well, you're just as stupid as I am, because I had that idea, and apparently not even that works. What the hell? That's it. This is going to require some outside-the-box thinking. It's just a shame I'm not very good at that. Alright, I know we want to beat the game as a dog, but what if I create some new colonists? Because the game does give us that option. Okay, think about that. It's not cheating technically because the game just puts it right there. I can do it. And maybe I just do that and I don't control them. How about that? It's not exactly what I had in mind, but, you know, I mean, if I could get us out of here like that, I think that's fine. Alright, you sorry-ass sons of bitches, let's get a move on. I've got a plane to catch off world. That's right, take it all in. Take a good look at them, because that's going to be you here in about a month or two, I'd say. Alright, that's enough looking. Let's get the hell out of here, huh? Okay, so this is probably a good time to tell you. After we head out, of course, we would end up taking all of the food and medicine and the weapons that we could along with us. Now, again, I'm not going to be controlling these colonists technically, but I will be changing up their reactions to threats, so instead of having them flee, I might go in and swap that out to have them attack. But I'm not going to be the one controlling them, micromanaging them, and stuff like that, ensuring that they don't get killed, right? We're the dog here. I just want to stress that, because there are ways to control them without actually controlling them. Now then, as we were making our long journey all the way to the ship that was going to take us to the stars, we started starving just a teeny tiny bit, so I guess it's about time for us to set up camp, huh? Thankfully, this time of year, there should be plenty of animals for me to hunt and plenty of berries for my humans to eat. Immediately after setting up camp, I designated some agave to be harvested, and since dogs can't harvest agave, the humans would do it all by themselves, and they would immediately start eating because, again, they are starving to death. As they were feeding their faces for survival purposes, I was trying to wrap my jowls around an iguana's head, and eventually I did, killing it. Now with that, I can finally eat too. Sweet blood and uncooked meats, and I'm also quite injured, unfortunately, from this. I know I said I didn't want to do this anymore earlier, but I kinda couldn't help myself. It was unavoidable. Thanks to their priorities being set, though, our human slaves would come in and automatically start tending to my wounds, so we shouldn't get an infection, hopefully. For a few days we ate agave and I healed up as best I could before we would finally set back out on our journey once more. I had hoped for an easy peasy video where I could simply just travel as a dog all the way to the ship, eating agave and hunting squirrels, but instead here I am, getting a bit of edging from not being able to use my colonist and having to waddle around on 4 legs. Whatever though, as you can see, we were having to set up camp every so often, that way we could eat, because foraging while walking was impossible for some reason. A small price to pay for beating the game as a doggo though. During some of these little campsite excursions though, I would designate some of these ruins like steel sarcophagi and columns to be deconstructed, giving us the steel from them, of course. Then all I had to do was set up a blueprint for a fueled smithy. Now, why am I doing all this? Well, because I could set a build to go about creating some animal armor. And I will say that technically I ended up kind of breaking the rules a little bit because I had to click on one of our colonists to then choose the armor and force them to put it on me, so I cheated. I lost. But look how good I look in the armor. Haha, hell yeah. Look, it was either this or I use character editor to do it, and I don't have thumbs, so technically I can tell you in retrospect after actually completing this video that it actually wasn't needed, and I just really wanted to put some armor on the dog, so I cheated, but I didn't have to, I promise. You'll just have to take my word for it, of course. Anywho, though, we were continuing our travel, setting up camp here and there, getting some berries, hunting some iguanas and squirrels, and blah, 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 and that's about it. But we were getting so close to that ship that I could smell it. Unfortunately, though, we ended up getting ambushed. Such a shame, as we were so close without any incident. Realistically, we hadn't had any threats other than, well, starvation, of course. But if you know RimWorld, then you know that you can set your colonist's reaction to a threat from running away to nothing to actually fighting the threat, and that's what we did here. I wasn't able to equip their weapons, not sure why they didn't equip their weapons, but they beat the absolute hell out of this fella. That's right, get him, boys. They caved his skull in. Awesome. Well, now that our human slaves finally have the guilt of having to take another man's life and self-defense on their conscience, we can finally get to that ship to the stars, and we would end up arriving shortly thereafter. A great big beautiful metal phallic shape right out here in the desert, eh? Now before we actually start up the reactor, I have kind of a plan. Stick with me here. We have a lot of ancient ruins in the area, and so I'm going to designate them to be deconstructed by our humans. Once they do that, and they collect all the resources, which is mostly stone blocks, some steel, stuff like that, limestone, granite, most importantly granite, as of course it is the strongest stone block that there is in the game, we started using these blocks to build ourselves a little rectangle around the entire ship. Now, we're not going to be building a colony or anything like that here, of course. I just want some type of defenses around the ship. It's the most vital. It's the entire reason we came here, okay? I don't want it to get destroyed. I don't think I really need to explain that too much. Thing is, though, not only is it the entire reason that we're here, the only way off the planet, but it is also going to be my special home for the remainder of this video. I'll show you what I mean. But first, I need to tell my silly little humans goodbye. And this is also another instance of me cheating because I forced them to line up like this. Again, I didn't have to. It wasn't crucial to beating the game, I swear to God. Anyways, though, I'm going to get in the ship now. I stuffed my little furry ass into a cryo sleep pod, and I was actually able to do this on my own after drafting myself. And this is where I will be spending, I guess, the remainder of my days here in the video, but also the remainder of my life until I'm woken up by the ship's AI in the great big beautiful beyond. Maybe doggy heaven, or maybe the stars. Either way, though, we still have quite some time before that happens. We need to start up the reactor, which is going to take 15 days, and in case you're new here, that also means that it's going to send out a signal that's going to attract a lot of unfriendly folks. So you better make yourself comfortable like I did, because we got 14 days to go and I'm not allowed to touch anything. That's right, again, I'm not controlling the humans. Even after the dog is in this chamber, I'm just going to sit back and watch. This might be the easiest video I've ever made, to be honest with you. You're probably wondering now, though, aren't the raids gonna keep coming? Of course they are, but again, I can't control our colonists, so we're just gonna have to watch it play out. Which is a little bit problematic because they're definitely going to die, or in this case, as you can see now, some of them are just going to be kidnapped. Now, around this time, I really wasn't knowing for sure if I was going to be able to even make this video, and definitely not if I was going to be able to beat RimWorld as a dog. I've gotten pretty close though, and I was just kind of banking on the fact that maybe our walls would hold out, and thus why we had made them of granite for the most part and doubled up on them. I thought that maybe raiders, once all our human companions were gone, would come in and beat on the walls, and after destroying a few of them, would eventually decide to leave, as sometimes if they do enough damage, that's what they'll do. Now, what they love more than doing that damage and leaving, though, is kidnapping people and leaving. After your colonists hit the ground, there's a pretty likely chance that they'll be willing to just kidnap some of them and leave. As you can see, we only have the one at the moment, who, because of all of her friends getting kidnapped and me being safe in my pod, not able to nuzzle her, is prone to mental breaks, like going berserk. I thought for sure this would end her life because she'd probably attack an animal, but no, she recovered from it, and the next night she was eating some berries. Right out in the open. Big mistake. Indeed, she too would be taken down by raiders. This time around, looks like it's some pig pirates, and they would eventually decide to kidnap her and to get the hell out of here. Funny thing is, we ended up getting a man in black, who just so happened to be this exact same colonist that was getting kidnapped's lover. RimWorld really is the ultimate story generator game because I'm playing as a dog, and yet somehow we still have this ultimate love story where this guy is about to rescue the love of his life. Oh. Never mind, it looks like they killed him. Still pretty cool, though. He's dead, and now she's being kidnapped, though. So you might be asking yourself, well, now you have no colonist. What do you do now? Well, I just kind of sit back and watch. The problem with that, though, as there's a lot of problems throughout this video, is that raids are still going to continue happening. And my genius plan of hoping that the raiders just wouldn't break through and start destroying the ship, or would beat on the walls and then feel content after destroying some stuff, yeah, that didn't work at all. As you probably could have guessed, that was such a dumbass plan to begin with. So as I had some tribespeople bashing our walls with their bow and arrows and what have you, I had to think of an idea, and quick. Well, not all that that quick as they're very slow at destroying these walls. But, you know, the game still gives us the option to create more wanderers without even having to take control of them. It's a little bit cheaty, but I think that's our best option. So that's exactly what we did. I summoned 3 more crash-landed colonists, and they started walking towards the colony, and were quickly swept up by the raid of tribespeople. They got beat down, they got killed, they got kidnapped. Exactly what you would expect, basically. It just kind of ties back to what I mentioned earlier. Raiders would much rather try to beat the dog shit out of your colonists and to kidnap them than anything else. So if we just keep summoning in more wanderers, then they're just gonna keep beating them down and kidnapping them and not attacking the ship. It was the perfect plan. Human sacrifice for the win. It also makes for a rather boring story for me to narrate. At one point I thought we were going to get something a little bit more interesting, as we had a trader in the area and we also had a raid about to attack us, but the trader fled. Probably the best move. Alas, it would seem that I just have to keep on clicking to bring in more wanderers, and I just kind of have to sit back and watch as the horror unfolds of them getting attacked. Now, I could have made it so that they would fight back, of course, but to be honest with you, this would have been more boring, as it would have just taken longer. And also, more importantly, even though they're fighting with our people, we still have a few of them who are attacking our walls while our colonists are getting killed. So the faster we get our colonists kidnapped and we get these raiders the hell out of here, the faster we don't have to worry about them breaking through any of our walls and attacking the ship. Anyways, though, for the next 6 or 7 days or something like that, it was a bit of rinse and repeat. I would summon in more wanderers after ours would get killed and kidnapped, and eventually we had the final countdown for the reactor. I wish I could tell you that my heart was pounding in these last few hours, but to be honest with you, I didn't really care. We could just summon in more wanderers to die on our behalf if we really needed to. And once the reactor was ready, it was time for us to get the hell out of here. And then we would get to take out a very long list of in memoriam to many, and I do mean many, dead colonists who sacrificed their lives. Thanks to every one of you, I guess. And you know what? In the end, can you beat RimWorld as a dog? Yes. And I guess, did I do that? Kinda, sorta. I probably could have done it a little better, but I kinda did it. Hey there, look at you. Made it to the end of the video, did ya? Thank you ever so much for watching this year's compilation of all the times that we beat RimWorld. This was actually the first year that I started making dedicated videos to beating RimWorld in different modded formats and scenarios. And of course you can find the link to all the mod lists in the video description. But if this is something you guys like, be sure to like the video, hype the video, all that other wonderful stuff that everybody else will ask you to do, of course. And that way, if you guys do enjoy it, next year we'll do another compilation, and this will also motivate me to continue beating RimWorld in these different interesting formats. But I love you guys, and I will see you next time.